All right, guys, let's go. I'd like to call to order our utility special district meeting. The date is November 20th and the time is 5:46 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson,
Here.
Vice Chair Chadrick McCoy,
Here.
Board Member Kashava Miller Anderson, Board Member Shirley Lanier, Board Member Glenn Spiritus, Ex Officio Board Member Mayor Ronnie Felder, City Manager Jonathan Evans, Deborah Hall, Acting District Clerk, is present. District Attorney Don Nguyen. Here. District Finance Director Randy Sherman. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. And did we recognize Ms. Miller Anderson? She is appearing virtual.
Board Member Miller Anderson.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
We can now. Thank you. If we can have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Board Member Lanier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions? Thank you. Board, disclosures? Motion to adopt agenda?
So moved.
Motion been made, properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Items on consent are routine in nature and adopted with one single motion. Would anyone like to pull an item from consent? Motion to adopt consent?
So move.
Sorry, Board Member McCoy would like to pull item 2A from consent. All right. Madam Clerk, 2A?
I'm not sure who gave the second for consent.
Oh, well, there's nothing else on consent. So
Oh, okay.
Board member's going to pull the only
Okay, I
consent item.
apologize. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Item 2A, resolution number 021-24UD. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District ratifying the district's letter of interest for Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any comment cards on consent. I'm sorry, we do not have any comment cards in this item. The acceptance of the cards is now closed.
Motion to adopt?
So move.
Second.
So made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can have Dr. Philip Harris approach the podium and address any concerns or questions the board may have with regards to the letter that staff is requesting authorization to proceed forward to submit to the EPA concerning WIFIA.
Thank you. Dr. Harris, do you have a presentation?
Yes. Good
Yes, sir.
afternoon, Chairman, Mayor, and board members. Just briefly, we're here to discuss the resolution, as you heard, 021249, approving us to submit a letter of interest for submission for the WIFIA. This approval of the submission for the WIFIA is for $147 million. The opportunity and the key objectives is to modernize and expand the water treatment capabilities, addressing our regulatory compliance, and enhance the sustainability for resiliency. The eligible opportunities as it relates to the WIFIA, it is you have to be a public entity organization addressing the compliance of quality and capacity challenges and the features within the WIFIA. This is, again, it's just a letter of interest for us to submit, for us to get to the point of submitting a formal application. But when we get to the formal application, there will be you could fund up to 49%, a competitive interest rate linked to the U.S. Treasury's rates. There's a 5-year deferment with interest-only payments during that period, if need be. In addition to that, you'll have opportunity to put down $100,000 for your application. The total project is $300 million. We're looking at submitting a request for $147 million. There is a cost as associated with buying by the Davis-Bacon, as well as the Building America by America. Remaining the funding, we're looking at other funds of sources, which you're going to hear tonight, obviously, with state revolving fund, bonds, and so on and so forth. Related to the economic impact, this gives us the opportunity for job creation, long-term cost efficiencies, and technologies and advancement. So overall, when we look at this new water plant, it allows us to mitigate extreme weather risk. It gives us the opportunity from a public health and community resiliency perspective, enhancing water quality and capacity across our community. And so today, our steps is to secure the funding. Ideally, that would be our ultimate goal, is to secure the funding and advance the Riviera Beach water infrastructure resiliency, and submitting our LOI to the EPA. And that's our request. Any questions specifically?
Thank you. Board Member McCoy.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Dr. Harris.
Welcome.
So I'm looking at the contact information. How does a board member be the primary point of contact?
We have the board member as the point of contact because as the utility district, we don't necessarily have a utility district executive director. So by you all as a board making an authorization, I feel fit to have the chair set to be the representative, or a board member to be a representative on the application.
So you feel you see fit to have us to authorize it. At what point do we authorize it?
Well, as a board this evening, you have the opportunity to decide whether you want us to submit the application. And then again, if there's any updates that you want to the application, we can make those adjustments.
Okay, so
Mr. Chair, if I may. So the letter that we're looking to submit, there's subsequent actions that will come back because we have to be accepted into the program from the EPA. So this letter is a letter of interest. If the EPA says that we are welcome to apply, then there's subsequent actions that this board would have to take in authorizations to participate in the program. So it will come back before this board. And so if there's any change that the board would like to see authored in the letter, we can certainly do that, but you will get another bite of the apple before we move through the process.
okay, thank you. So back to what I was actually asking, because I'm not sure what his response was to, because I mean, it says Mr. Douglas Lawson, chairperson, and I got a concern with that.
Okay.
You, Mr. Evans, or Mr. Lawson doesn't have the ability to put his name there. If this is something that you intend on bringing to the board, I think that needs to be a part of the conversation, because I have some concerns about something that I've seen inside of the OIG's report that specifically listed Mr. Douglas Lawson's name being a part of certain meetings. And, you know, I don't want it to be a situation where by way of being the chairperson, he has access or the ability to more information that we do. So you don't have that authority, and quite frankly, until the board designates Mr. Chairperson to act as the point of contact, that shouldn't be there. And I would not normally be concerned, but what got my attention in reading the OIG's 15-page report, there was meetings that the chairperson was a part of, certainly that I had no idea, and these occurred before public notification was sent out to the public. And it's very disheartening that I gotta sit and almost lie to members of the public because I don't know what's going on. And if information is being withheld from me, and perhaps my colleague is privy to it, can you kind of see what that makes it a very uncomfortable situation for me?
Understood.
Now,
Understood.
certainly, I have no problem with Mr. Lawson being the point of contact, but I think we need to all be on the same page as to how this is to work, and we just don't arbitrarily pick someone. You know, they call him up. Is he 100% abreast on these nuances that is involved in this?
So again,
That's a question.
Oh, question. I would say no.
Mr. Chair?
Board Member McCoy, if you're finished with your comments?
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Spiters.
Chair, I make a motion that we change the contact person and the person executing the agreement from the chair to the city manager, and we authorize the city manager to execute the document on our behalf.
Second.
Additional comments?
Now, I do have some additional comments. So,
Go ahead, Board Member McCoy, you recognized.
Councilman Spiritus, you said to authorize this document. Now, certainly, and that was another thing because, it puts a lot of information and onus on you. I mean, I'm looking at page 23. You would literally have to agree to the certifications, and I'm sure you're capable of it. PDF page, actually, it starts at PDF page 22. I'm sure you're capable of it, but unless, you can speak to whether federal funds have been appropriated or paid on behalf of the undersigned to any member or any person influenced or attempting to influence an officer or an employee of the agency, or a member of Congress, or an officer or an employee of Congress, or a member of Congress in connection with the awarding of the contract, I don't think that's where elected official needs to be at, because we have no clue what staff is doing, and that's part of the certification that would have been what the chairperson would have been executing.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, you recognize.
Right, so we're authorizing the city manager
I get it.
to execute this agreement on our behalf.
Correct.
That's this particular agreement. We're going to come back with actual agreements that we will have to authorize and review and authorize. And at that time, we could decide if we want to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement or someone else. But clearly, we cannot hold this up because this is way, way too important right now.
Agreed. Thank you.
Additional comments? Madam Clerk, we're going to be voting on the item to make an amendment to this application to adding, I believe, Mr. Evans as a point of contact.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I do apologize. We did have one public comment card on this item, if you wanted to allow the person to speak.
Thank you, ma'am.
That would be Kendrick Wiley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Chairperson, Vice Chair, Board members, Honorable Mayor. Excuse me, y'all. Thank you. I live in District 1, and in this bottle right here is tap water from our faucet. So I just want to make clear there's no poop in our water and it's safe to drink. And it's pretty good. But getting to the agenda, I think we need to move forward with this, you know what I mean? Because we're waiting too long. We need to get into the future, and we need to go with this good water. So I did my research. Average treatment plan lifespan is about 25, 50 years. Our treatment plant is 66 years old. It was built 1958. So we need to get moving forward on this. It's not a waste of time, like Spirit said. It's too important to play with. But my biggest concern is with this $410 million plant, the residents, well, how do they get billed?
Point of order. Humanity.
We were talking about the WIFIA funds application.
Application?
Mr. Wiley, the WIFIA funds application is the item that we're on, Mr. Wiley.
Oh, wait, what, the 49%, they take 200 million, and we got owe the other 51. The whole question is, with this finance, how much will help the resident with their utilities or their taxes? So my question is, how much do the resident have to pay?
Deborah.
Go ahead, sir. Sorry, they were just starting back the time. Go ahead.
All right, sorry. Okay.
He stopped it when we had a point of order. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So like I was saying is, with the residents, with this finance you got going on, how it will affect the residents on their utility bill or their property taxes for this, what I said, $410 million project, financing 49% of that. I can imagine the interest rate on that. So my question is to everyone here, how don't have the residents? So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment, sir.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of public comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
So the amendment is to remove your name and add Mr. Evans' name, correct?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay, thank you.
as the point of contact for the WIFIA application.
Right, thank you.
This comments from the board? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Board Mem-
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson,
Yes,
unanimous vote.
thank you. 4A,
Item 4A, presentations on updates of utility special district projects.
thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I can have the Assistant City Manager introduce our speakers for this evening concerning an update on the utilities special district projects. Ms. Jacobs?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Good evening, Chair Lawson, Mayor Felder, other elected officials in your respective places, Mr. Evans, Attorney Nguyen, and City Clerk Hall. For the record, I'm Deirdre Jacobs, the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. I'll be bringing before you item 4A, which deals with the monthly status reports of the firms that are working with us over at Utility District in order to effectuate operations. Um, The firms are U.S. Water, and Mr. Miller is here to make that presentation. Haskell CDM Smith, Mr. Hoisington is here for that one, and Brown and Caldwell. Nigel Grace is here for that presentation. If you would all please come forward in that order.
So, Mr. Chair,
You recognize?
before anybody starts, I want to know, and perhaps we should get this ahead of time. This is not about to be a 4.5 hour
No, sir.
presentation session like we seen last month. So it'd be helpful to know, similar to what we have gotten, like what these presentations, like how long we can expect this to last. Because if this is the case, I'm just gonna get up right now because I cannot sit here till 1 o'clock in the morning, listening to 4.5 hours worth of presentations when it was our clear direction that they can send us back something in the interim before it comes to the meeting, other than the I guess the summarized document here that's on the agenda. And I'm concerned that just as in the essence of time, that they're not reading the very thing that's in the backup. Because certainly I've seen that, but I don't want this whole entire thing to be what we seen last month, 5 hours in a utility district meeting.
Mr. Lawson?
Board Member McCoy, you complete
Yes.
comments? Go ahead, Assistant Director,
Yes, sir. Mr. McCoy,
Assistant Manager.
there won't be lengthy presentations. I'm thinking that each of them may take less than 10 minutes in order to make the presentations.
Each one is going to take 10 minutes?
How
Because
much
that's
time
pretty
is it?
lengthy.
There's, Mr. Miller is saying 5 for his.
If we can
less
do
than
5-minute
Yes,
presentations from each
that's
one.
fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman, Board, and City Administration. Yes, I will be here about 5 minutes to give you an update on the water treatment plant, the current water treatment plant that we have. The first item with regards to the water quality, we're still maintaining the water quality within compliance. We do have some systems that we're coming back online that will come online next week, and we anticipate that we'll begin to see the difference in the water quality once we get the CO2 back for next week. So with regards to the water quality, we are still on that path and we still are in compliance. With regards to the distribution system, we are having some favorable results as far as the consistent residual throughout the system. In particular, we were looking at some of our problem areas to include Singer Island in the western part of the city, of the system, and so far it seems to be going pretty well with regards to the residual and the city staying in compliance. From an operational standpoint, as you all know, the plant manager is no longer there at the site, so U.S. Water is taking on more of operational standpoint from an advisory position to help the district. And although there's a lot that still has to be done with regards to maintenance, we are getting the cooperation from the staff, and we're maintaining the demand for the city. From a compliance standpoint, we authorized a third-party vendor to come in and give us a snapshot of what the compliance picture looks like for the district. We're waiting for that report, and that report will determine some of our training with regards to compliance, in particular the sampling, lab processing, and so forth. We anticipate to have that course with regards to compliance in December of this year. Finally, with regards to the compliance, given the fact that there's been a resignation of the compliance manager, we have U.S. Water. We brought over our compliance director to help to ensure that there's a smooth transition until another compliance manager can be found. That's the quick and dirty of the update for the water treatment plant.
Thank you. Any update? Mayor, you recognize.
Good evening, sir. Are there 5 wells ready to go online now?
My understanding is that we have 2 wells that are ready. I have to check with the Global Tech and Mr. Armstrong, the city engineer, in order to see if there's others that are available. But right now, my understanding, we have 2 that we can come online.
So you don't know about the 5?
At this particular point, I don't know if they're actually ready. I know that Global Tech has been working on it, but I don't know exactly which of those are quite ready. I do know of the 2.
So 2 are ready.
Yes.
Have U.S. Water released them to go online?
We have brought on 12A today, if I'm not mistaken. The city, the operators, have brought on 12A, and I think it's 921 is the other that we're considering.
Who oversees from the city the work that U.S. Water is?
I report to the assistant city manager, Miss Jacobs.
So Ms. Jacobs oversee U.S. Water right now?
That's who I report to, yes.
And Mr. Evans, do you have any idea why the compliance manager resigned? I mean, if you may answer, I don't know if you can answer that, but is that a question you can answer?
You recognize.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, I received the notification of the compliance manager departing from the agency. As it relates to the specificities, I don't have the specificities as it relates to their departure.
And Ms. Evans, we're looking to keep U.S. Water for another 6 months.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognize.
At this particular moment, our relationship with U.S. Water is till March. We may look at the possibility of extending or asking the board to consider an extension for an additional 3-month period, but it depends on our ability to fill some critical vacancies in the utility district and get ahead of some of the maintenance repairs. So we're still doing some work with regards to that.
Good for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Additional comments? You recognize, Dr. Spiritus.
Can you please speak to the softeners and the slackers and the distributional lime in the plant? Can you tell me what the status of those 3, and also the panels that you were waiting for, did those come in?
Yes. With regards to the slakers themselves, they are operational. They're actually online as we speak. We did order some panels for replacement, but because the specs had changed, we have to get different ones. So we're just waiting for those to arrive. But the slakers are operational and they're in place. With regards to the softeners, the North Softener, we had a major event with that as far as the gearbox shutting down. So we had to replace that. We have ordered a replacement for a new gearbox assembly, and that takes about 4 weeks to lead time. We have approximately 2 more weeks left on that. we were fortunate to find another motor and gearbox that was on site to temporarily put in place now. And the softener is working and is operating, but there is some additional maintenance that's going to be required. With the south softener, we have to get the weirs have to be replaced on that, but that does not necessarily impact the demand, us being able to produce and meet the demand with the south softener out. And finally, with the CO2 system, we've had that commissioned and been inspected. And right now, what we're trying to do is get a vendor, a CO2 vendor here to provide us to deliver that particular product. And we feel once we get the CO2 in, then we'll have the whole component of the process in place to help to improve the water quality. Now, we still have a lot of maintenance that still needs to be done, especially on the filters, but that's basically kind of the gist of the situation, and I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Additional comments? Thank you, sir, and thank you for the presentation.
Right.
Next up, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair, if I can have the JV team from Haskell CDM Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, Chair, board members. We will just plan on giving you a relatively quick update today. I just wanted to highlight that because of all the action going on with the funding, we have engaged our national funding expert is here. We've been working today with both Mr. Sherman and Dr. Harris, so I'm going to let her lead, and then I'll do updates.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, Chair, and members, I just wanted to go over a couple of slides today and then open for any questions that you might have about the funding. I won't belabor this one. Again, my name is Stacy Barna. Dr. Harris went through the WIFIA program in a little more detail as far as what the district would be applying for. Certainly, once the letter of interest is submitted, then we'd be looking at the potential for an application after that, which we will be happy to assist with. You would be looking at cost considerations of $100,000 with an application fee. Additionally, there would be some charges for the financial advisor and bond counsel if you decide to pursue the application. We are looking at what the impacts of the project would be as far as having to incorporate anything with BABA and the other federal cross-cutters to that. Overall, the interest rates right now for the WIFIA program are about 4.5%, a little over that percent. And so this could be certainly a little bit of a savings to the district. Let me see, I'm trying to think of what else we want to go through with this. Yeah, I don't think we have a lot more to go over that. I think Dr. Harris covered it. So the other one would be the state revolving fund, and the state revolving fund has ample funds available. Quite a bit of that, as you probably are well aware, is from the bipartisan infrastructure law. So quite a bit of funding went to the state of Florida for that, which is available in low interest loans. And so right now we have the draft facilities planning document, which is nearing completion. It will be complete this month. And next, what we would do is advertise and schedule the public hearing and submit an RFI to the state. That would be by next month, which would be in anticipation of their February meeting. We would potentially look at 2 RFIs. The first one would be for the groundwater wells. Since those are ready, essentially, we would have the plans and specs ready for that. And so we would submit that information now for the February meeting. I did talk with Florida DEP today. They do still have funding available as of right now for that meeting. And we will be having some further conversations with them to make sure that they are well briefed on the project and it's ready to go. After that, we would consider submitting an RFI for the water treatment plant components. Once the plans and specs are completed for that, that would likely be for their new funding cycle. So we would submit it during second quarter of next year, and it would be ready for their August board meeting.
Mr. Chair.
You recognize.
Can you tell me, it's my understanding that we're going for 75 million with the SRF program?
75 million is what has been discussed. Certainly, I think there is the ability to actually ask for more and see what they're willing to tell us, what they're willing to give us at this point. I would almost advocate for that, but 75 was the ballpark we were looking at based on some of the other funding sources that are anticipated being utilized.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we go for more money.
Okay.
We can always go down, you can't go up.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
Right. I just want to, Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I just, we get a lot of bad news. I just want to give some good news. The mayor and I went to Washington, D.C., where we met with our congressional representatives to gain their support for the WIFIA program and any other programs that are out there. They all gave us their support. They set up a meeting for us with EPA. We met with assistant secretaries and staff. The director of the WIFIA program is involved right now. They're all very excited about this application coming in. They all want to help us as much as they can. So we're looking forward to a successful project and getting this new water plant up and going and operating. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to hit on the alternative water supply funding program because that is local to your water management district and DEP. This only applies to the Floridan aquifer system because that is what the term alternative water supply means. So you guys last month approved the water supply facilities work plan, which was a requirement for us to go after this funding. So thank you for that. Now the portal and application period will open up in December. We already have planning a meeting with Southwater Water Management District to align our application with what we think we can get approved. We're looking for a 3-year rolling effort, which means one application that they fund over 3 years, hopefully portions of the project. So that's soon to come, but we are positioned now where we weren't before. So we appreciate the support. Just some updates on the project schedule. Last month was a really busy month. I think at the last board meeting, we had submitted 60% design, just submitted 60% design for both Avenue L and Avenue U. The owner's rep and the city have been reviewing those plans and specs. We've been having workshops talking through the project components. Most recently, within the last couple of weeks, we've submitted both the finished water transmission main and the raw water transmission main. Those are, again, under review right now. So really the biggest action going on right now is we're doing a lot of coordination with the owner's rep on review of the drawings and the specifications, and we are developing a cost estimate for the whole project. We anticipate that cost estimate, which would be an update from the number you've seen previously, reflective of also the BABA requirements. We are trying to parse that out so we can get a good feel of the impacts, but that will all be developed within the next couple of weeks and submitted to the district. And I want to give an update on the pilot just because there's been some discussion about the pre-treatment. We had a little bit of delay in getting equipment here. We have one UF pilot skid that is expected to ship on Monday, November 25th. So hoping to get that by the end of next week, if not early December. And then we have our other actual equipment coming in the week after that. So the intent is to start piloting for the pre-treatment system in December. That will give us a good couple months to be ready for when we're go out to bid. And we're going to give you a little bit of an update. It's related to your agenda item later on the groundwater supply wells, but we'll give a little summary now so you understand what you're looking at.
Thank you. So item 7B later that we're going to ask you guys to vote on, essentially the approval of the 4 production wells for the project. So here's high level. There were 3 bidders on the wells. There was 1 bidder on the site work. However, we reached out to 22 different companies. The electrician, there was 3 bidders. So grand scheme of things, we went out to bid for all packages that were available. So there was 97% of the packages were bid out that were available. The one bidder that was not bid out was the INC and controls because of the complexity and the changing. However, as we move forward, the JV will bid out that package and any savings will be returned to Riviera Beach. So with that being said, though, 49% of the project, once it's awarded, will be local and minority businesses here within Palm Beach County. So I think that's a win for this project. Additionally, the first 90 days, we're seeking approval at this council meeting. We want to notice proceed by December 6th so we can write commitments, get the purchase orders and subcontracts in hand, and then mobilize the drill rigs and start drilling. So high level, that's the next 90 days. So we will look for a groundbreaking ceremony with Riviera Beach to kick off this momentous occasion. So with the challenges of the pilot, the JV wants to propose multiple GMP packages. We need to start showing movement on the site. We want to break the project down into smaller packages and move it forward. This will also help with the being able to find funding availability, being able to submit these packages. So the key is bringing these packages to you and allowing the overall schedule to be maintained. And with this plan, we are planning to start producing water in Q4 of 2027. So at this time, I ask, what questions can we answer?
Question from the board?
Mr. Chair,
You recognize that, Spears.
is there any chance in reducing the time period rather than fourth quarter, third quarter, second quarter of 27?
It's going to be the challenge of getting the equipment out there because the electrical equipment has more than a year lead time. And right now, some of the concerns with the pretreatment system is designing around that. We are recommending, with talking to the staff, to start procuring the longest lead equipment available. If we have to upsize the frame of the MCC to be able to procure that, and then we'll be able to adjust with the VFD or the bucket sizes. So we are exploring options to be able to pull that back faster. But so we're trying.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, Mr. Chairman, one more follow-up, please.
You're right.
Yeah, as far as the drilling of the wells, is there a reason, we had this discussion before, is there any reason that we can't do more wells right now?
No, sir. We're only getting approved for 4 at this time because of the funding constraints. We do plan on working with a well driller to mobilize 2 drill rigs at a time.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize?
Okay, so, Mr. Evans, we've had this discussion, you know, I should have mentioned before that the staff was on a conference call with the people at EPA, and they all are on the same page and we're all working together. With respect to the funding challenge for the wells, the director of WIFIA told us that we could, as long as we follow the federal regulations, you know, Davis-Bacon and other federal regulations that we normally do in their procurement cycle, if we follow that, we can get reimbursed through WIFIA. So does it not make sense for us to bond right now, do a short-term bond, and get reimbursed later on from the WIFIA program?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognize?
To the councilperson's point, we plan on coming back with subsequent requests from this board to move forward to address the conditions of the wells in the well field. So there will be additional packages that we will bring forward to address the 27 wells that we have. So there will be items that we will be looking at all funding sources and opportunities, but we do want to address the well fields in its entirety.
Right, sooner the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Thank you so much, Haskell, for the team, the presentation, and for the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome
Good
back.
evening, Council Chair, Honorable Mayor, board members. Certainly, I appreciate the opportunity to update you this evening on, from the owner's rep perspective, on the overall progression of the work. Joining me here is my colleague Matthew Schultz, who will supplement with some discussions on the wells field GMP. As the JV mentioned earlier, this has been a very active period. There's been numerous deliverables, lots of meetings, all with the objective of refining the design deliverables, optimizing deliverables, not just for cost and the substance of the offer, particularly with the GMP, but also looking ahead to operability and constructability and various elements that can impact the progression of the ultimate water treatment plant. We had a very productive design review workshop on the proposed water treatment plant. A number of items were identified through that activity for further enhancing the overall value conveyed to the city. The JV and its technical team are currently working on addressing those comments and really taking the design to the next level. The water plant design is at the 60% level. For reasons previously cited, the pretreatment component is lagging a bit with that, and the expectation is that with piloting, then that will ultimately catch up to the other components of the project. So generally, that component of the design is progressing as well as can reasonably be expected. There are a few action items that came through the review process that will require some follow-up actions on the city's part. One of them being the discharge of processed fluid residuals that are generated by various activities within the plant. As you know, the project includes an injection well, which is primarily intended to receive concentrate and other streams for disposal underground. However, as the project has evolved, there are a few other process-related streams that the current design is earmarking for discharge to the sewer system. One of the things we're looking at with the JVs to see if there are any alternative approaches that can minimize those discharges, because of course any fluids discharge to the sewer system will ultimately translate into a sewer bill from the ECR. So we're looking at the overall operating cost for this facility and trying to determine what measures can be done to minimize those kinds of requirements. Complementary to that is that to the extent that those discharges are inevitable, then there'll be requirements for the city to take steps to provide assurance that there is adequate capacity in a sewer system to receive and convey those flows to the ECR. I underscore this just as an example to illustrate the scope of discussions that are underway and with the objective of refining the overall outcome. There are a number of items of a similar nature that were summarized in the status update memo that was provided together with your agenda package. As noted, the GMP for the well field is before you for review and possible approval this evening. That has gone through some extensive review and refinement that we believe enhances overall value to the city and reduces any unnecessary risks to the city in the performance of that work. So with that, I'll take a pause here and see if there are any specific questions relating to these items.
No, you can continue, Nigel. Thank you.
Okay, so that in essence, wraps up the majority of what I want to say. So there's some follow-up activities on the city's part. We aim to assist the city with that in engaging the representatives for the ECR facility to address some of the disposal requirements that this new water plant is going to create. That was initiated by the former executive director, who's no longer with the city. We're going to pick up from where he left off and bring some of those open questions to conclusion. As a secondary note, of course, the city's water supply facility plan was recently approved by the board, and subsequently the comp plan amendments that associated with water supply facility plan was approved on first reading and has subsequently been submitted to the state for review. So that's progressing fairly well. I know the JV is in the process of scheduling some meetings with the South Florida Water Management District to further discussions about ensuring that everything is in place to essentially provide a mechanism for the city to develop alternative water supply grant funding in the upcoming cycle. And that approval process of the water supply facility plan is instrumental to that desired outcome. So that's another point of progress I'd like to highlight. The last thing I'd like to point out for you is that the Wellfield GMP development process took several months, right? It was initiated in the latter part of June with submittal of the first GMP package, and of course you have before you tonight a reduced package for approval. One of the things we did together with the city and the JV was we had a review lessons learned workshop where we went through all the challenges and the back and forth associated with that process, and we developed some refined protocols and how we're gonna, handle subsequent GMPs to address items that can be addressed in parallel, minimize sequential reviews, back and forth submittals, etc. So steps are being taken now to begin the process months before you actually see a water plant GMP to begin to negotiate clarifications and assumptions, the fee, elements that are independent to a large degree from the substance of the design. We're going to start working on those components now to ensure that all the necessary pieces are in place. So as the pricing is worked through and the details of the GMPs worked through, we will be in a better position to bring an item to the board on a more expeditious timeline.
Thank you so much, Nigel.
Okay, thank you.
Question from the board? Nope. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair. Presentations for that item.
Thank you, sir. You recognized. Board Member McCoy.
So can you speak to why the utility district went out for a owner's rep today through Demand Star? And what's the deal with Brown and Caldwell, if that's the case?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognize.
The item that was put out before, I think it's for the management of the Global Tech agreement for the wells, for the well project.
I'm speaking of what I seen go out today.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would have to ask the procurement director to get up and share some information concerning that. I'm not aware of what went out today specifically to.
I would insist, because if Brown and Caldwell is giving a report, and that's who our owner's rep is, somebody needs to clarify why we're now still seeking a new owner's rep. And certainly, this has been very much, there was direction when this left in the last time. So I'm curious to see the justification. And if you, Mr. Evans, who's currently in charge of day-to-day operations, don't know why we went out for a owner's rep solicitation, that's a problem.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You recognize.
I'd like to allow for the procurement director to share some information.
I'll follow up, Chair.
You recognize.
She doesn't work for the UD. She doesn't report to this board. Mr. Evans, a utility district solicitation went out for owner's representative. We had a very long discussion. Mr. Evans, can you tell us why a utility district's owner's representative solicitation went out today?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You recognize.
I believe it's consistent with the direction that we were provided by the board concerning the Global Tech well package for owner's rep services. But I can't speak specifically because I haven't looked at the document that you're referencing.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
well, we, if I can remember correctly, we didn't give you guys direction to go out. You guys insisted on going out. We already have owner's representatives under contract and under a current solicitation. So I need something better than that, Mr. Evans. And I actually did go through and review the scope, and I'm not sure how what we said in the previous meeting ultimately results in someone looking for owner's representative.
Mr. Chair?
Board Member McCoy, you finished?
Yes.
Thank you. You recognize Dr. Switters.
Okay, I'm on the same page right now as Member McCoy. We did discuss this, I believe, at the last meeting. We were interested in using one of the owner's reps, I think it was PSA, to represent us on that particular portion of the project since we didn't have an owner's rep on the drilling. Is there a reason we're going out now and not using the PSA, for example, who's already approved as an owner's rep and can do this job?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You recognize.
if I can allow for the procurement director to provide some additional context with regards to the conversation.
Please, Ms. Evans.
Yes. Hi, good evening, Chair, Council, and the public. I do believe I was standing here last month and we did discuss asking or reaching out to the five or six pre-qualified vendors on the request for qualifications. And sir, what was posted today was just a public ask. The only people who can respond are the six that were qualified. And so that is how we, in procurement, when we have the list of, the way I run my solicitations to make sure it's all public and it's transparent and it's fair and can be compliant. We have the list of qualifications, and now we have work that we want to do. And so we just post publicly. And so we ask those individuals or those companies that were pre-qualified to respond. So it is not a separate solicitation. It's just a follow-up to what we've discussed, I believe, for the last two meetings.
Sure.
Thank you. You recognize Dr. Peters.
So the question is, are they going to give us new proposals to do this work, or are they just responding that they're able and willing to do the work based on their previous approvals?
Chair, may I?
You recognize.
They're just going to provide the cost. They've already been qualified, so now we just want to look at the cost proposals for everyone that has already been pre-qualified, those that choose to respond.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize.
So is the scope of work going to be the same for all six?
Yes, sir. The scope of work was developed by U.S. Water, approved by the administration for what we need that particular owner's rep entity to do for us. And so that is what was in this statement of work. So each project that would follow a list of like qualifications would be, they would need to do something different. And so this scope was developed just for the water district project, and then they'll respond just with the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Emmons, I looked at the Skanska's contract, the PSA contract, and the all-site. There are prices called out in those contracts. Why? I don't understand why would we need to go back and do this if they already have agreed upon prices in their agreement, in their executed contracts.
Chair, if I may.
You recognize.
So we're asking them for this project, not for the hourly rate that they provided, but for instance, for the work that we've asked them to do. Someone may want two people at one level and one person at another level, and their total cost may be X. And then the other vendor may come in and say, no, I'm going to have this combination of work, and I present a different cost at Y. And so we look at the cost to determine who will receive the actual award. So yes, prices are set. So just for a clearer example, if you have a list of, let's say, a junior, a staff person 1, staff person 2, staff person 3, and the president, $10 an hour, $15 an hour, $20 an hour, and $100. So here comes a job, and someone says, hey, I can do the job for what you're asking for $5,000 based upon this mix, based upon my people. And someone else can come along and say, hey, I can do the job for $10,000. And so that is what we're asking. If not, then it becomes, that's how we're going to select. That's how we will present to the board to present a contract to the vendor based upon cost, because they've all been pre-qualified.
Follow up. Thank you. And you actually said it right. That's how you're going to select. And that's the problem. And the agreements already call out the very thing that you just spoke of, Ms. Emmons. And not to mention, if you're sitting here suggesting that this is a continuation, that's one thing. But to sit here and go out and suggest that we're going to now ask them to do something different, I mean, you're modifying the original executed agreement that already has costs included in it. So I would very much caution you, because I went through it very meticulously. In fact, someone came to me from Skanska because they thought there was a problem, and it was just simply because no one had in administration desired that kind of work or had the need for that kind of work from that company. So I don't see where you're saying that this is some new occurrence.
If I may, Chair. So the owner's rep for the wells is new. We've selected another vendor for owner's rep for the fire station. So when you pre-qualify vendors, it was for the possibility of different projects coming up. So there was never a scope that was developed at the time for someone to say that it would cost me X amount of dollars. So we pre-qualified. We said, yes, all of you are based upon the qualifications at that time, these vendors met them. So now I have a project. And so to select someone, how do you select someone? So my recommendation, which I mentioned at the last meeting, was to ask them to give us a proposal, and it's just based on cost. So therefore, it's also a way of I talk to other colleagues around the state, like how do you select people from a pre-qualified list? Project one, project two, vendor two. But wait, how do you limit also giving too much work to one vendor, even though everyone is qualified? But now we know what we want someone to do. There may be another project 6 months from now. We should use the same fair and transparent process to say, I have a project, please bid on it. You've already been qualified. No one else is on the list can be awarded the work. So we will bring back to the board, yes, it is up to the council to decide who to use, but it's either choose them from the floor based upon what? You all wanted to give the recommendation to one vendor. What about the others? So I want everyone to have an opportunity to understand that we have a project. Please give us your price, and then we'll come back with a recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Board Member McCoy, you're recognized.
Okay, well, if what you're saying is true, at what point do you plan on bringing us the item so we, as you said, can choose the owner's rep for Fire Station 86 or choose the owner's rep for the police station? Because I know I've heard you clearly that
Yes.
it's our decision,
Yes.
but you already got people working as owner's representative for Fire Station 86, and you have people that's working as owner's representative for the police station. Ms. Evans, are you aware that never came before the board? Yes or no?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Ms.
Okay.
Evans, I don't believe you were on the board. You weren't with us at that time.
No, I
So-
was not.
So to that point, it's not a yes or no, Board Member McCoy. It's she wasn't on this administration. So if we're going to let her do her job and she
Okay,
feels it.
wait, sir. If she doesn't know, let her answer the question.
Yeah, but you
if
asked
she
her a
can-
yes or no question, which was arbitrary. You need to give her an opportunity to answer clearly and transparency,
Let
Board Member.
her answer it, sir.
Well, let's paint the narrative properly. Yes or no doesn't answer the
Okay,
question.
well,
Board
sir,
Member.
you interrupted my time, so you gonna
Agreed.
okay? All right, I still have the floor. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, I have the floor. Thanks.
So
Ms. Emmons,
Board
I'm
Member,
gonna
you
take it
are
like this
recognized.
because I'm not done.
You are recognized, Board Member.
No, I'm not. Listen, sir, I had the floor.
You're
I
recognized.
asked the question. You interrupted. Miss Emmons.
Yes, sir.
So let me make sure I'm clear on this before I was abruptly interrupted by the chairperson. You said that you were not aware that we had a owner's representative already for Fire Station 86 and also for the police station.
If I may, that was not your question, I don't believe, but I didn't start with the city until August the 19th, 2024. So the decision to appoint or give or select the previous owners reps were done previous to me starting. And so for me, but now that I'm here, I asked 2 weeks ago, last month, to give me the opportunity. So because we even had the first agreement, as we move forward, I'm trying to make changes as I move forward. So that is why. So I cannot speak to what happened previous to me beginning my employment with the city of Riviera Beach on Monday, August 19th, 2024.
Thank you. So my follow-up question is, then it's your position that the board should choose those individuals who's the owner's rep for 86 in the police station. And I want to make sure that I got to that point because, obviously the chair wants to remind me when you started, but the point is you've already went on record to say that that's a decision that this board should make. And because it has not, you don't know why, but I want to make sure that you go and find out how. And now I have somebody that's actually meeting and discussing and doing preliminary conceptual plans that the board has not authorized.
If I may share, since my tenure here, there are different methods to select someone. you walk into it from the council and from the meeting as you motioned for the
And
last.
I'm actually going to interrupt
Yeah,
that
mhm.
because I believe we need items germane to the utility district and the updates on the water plant. So
Yes,
if
sir.
Board Member McCoy is going to address something that's not relative to what we're discussing, I would prefer that we move on with the meeting.
Yeah, well, we finished the presentation. So
Absolutely. So we're going on to the next item for utility district, Board Member McCoy. So that's not utility district updates. You want to discuss
it
the
is an update. It's a part,
owner's rep for the fire station and for the
okay,
police station?
okay, so I
Board member,
spoke
if we can't
to,
move on with the business of
no,
the utility district.
well, it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna shut
No,
me down
it
like you
is, board
did
member.
January 24th.
You're right.
So here's
Board-
what we're gonna do.
Board member,
I'm still recognized because I'm asking you about Brown and Caldwell, who's the current owner's representative. So it's your position that now, because the scope is changing, we need to now go out and select a new owner's rep and then now get prices based on that.
No, sir, I don't believe the scope is changing. In my research, and please correct me if I'm wrong, from a utility district, there are two swim lanes. There's the repair of the wells, and then there's the construction of the new ones. And so the owner's rep is just for the repair of the wells. That's that swim lane. And so that is the SOW that was sent out today in that particular swim lane to make sure we have owner's rep to oversee the construction of the existing wells, unless I misunderstood. And the current owner's rep is for the build of the new wells. If I have that wrong, then I apologize to everyone. But this owner's rep that we were discussing, statement of work, was for the construction. I believe at the last meeting it was Mr. Armstrong. The question was who is watching what is going on, Mr. Armstrong. He cannot do it by himself, and that was the point of needing someone to manage the construction. And so that is what this owner's rep is doing. Again, the selection for the new wells was, all of those decisions were made before I started. And so my recommendation for this project, for owner's rep for the construction of the wells, is to move forward and ask all of the individuals who are pre-qualified to provide pricing so we can make a decision to bring before the council to move with that particular contract.
Thank you.
thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and purify the record because on January 24th, board member, you were shut down because we lost a quorum, not to interrupt the business of the meeting. And you were actually discussed the option of having a meeting with my city attorney. But instead of allowing for me to speak, board member, you went on your rant. So thank you for continuing to be clear with your concerns. But if we're going to purify the record, state it clearly. Dr. Spirit, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is these are professional services.
Mhm.
Does Florida law allow us to do pricing competition on professional services? This is not a bidding procedure. Shouldn't we just be negotiating prices individually with the engineering firms?
Well, this does not fall under CCNA. I've researched the statute today and even called some other colleagues because it is not for engineering or architecture. It is just for project management for the repair of the wells.
No,
As far as
well-
from an owner's rep perspective.
Well, see, I look at it a little differently. I was hoping that we were going to get an engineering firm to be representing us as well as for the construction so that they can review the engineering process while it's going on to ensure that it's being done properly. So I think I look at it as a professional services. I do think it's CCNA, and I would request that you look into that you take a second look at that before you move forward.
Councilman, if I may.
You're recognized.
Chair, if it is a CCNA, then we would need to scratch everything and start all over and not even look at the qualification, the pre-qual list, right? I like clean solicitations. So if we're not understanding if the scope that's posted, which way we were understood and the way, the scope, the statement of work was approved, it was for the owner's rep for the construction of the wells. If engineering is needed, then I say let's draw the line and completely start over and put it back out on the street for everyone and not just those that were pre-qualified to now understand, right? Exactly. So if we want an engineering firm, then let's just start all over. Let's just make it clean and draw a line in the sand. That would be my professional recommendation.
Thank you.
Chair?
You recognize board member.
So why would we need why is this being looked at as an engineering? Normally, we would bring an engineer in when we have a construction project going on to ensure that everything is being done according to the plans and specifications, during the construction process. And usually obviously we want an engineer because they have errors and omissions insurance to protect us during that process. So isn't this a CCNA? I mean, I look at it differently when I do projects like this, or where I've done them in the past.
Mhm.
It's usually an engineering firm or an architectural firm that's overseeing this type of project.
Chair, if I may,
Recognize Ms.
then,
Evans.
Dr. Spears, I would like to ask then if we could just have a conversation then offline, not to hide it from the public, so we can take a look at the scope, really understand the scope, as far as input, and then even talk to legal. But when I talked to a couple of colleagues around the state of Florida today, they just didn't, when we looked at it, it just didn't read as CCNA from an owner's rep perspective. But I hear your concerns. We want to get this right, but we also want to be fair in who does the work. We want to make sure that we put this out and that, I've said before, and not to drag on it, but my department's motto is fairness, transparency, and compliance. So I'm sensitive to it all, and I want to make sure that everyone understands, like what we're doing, but yet not attacked because it's, kind of different than the way someone else, and I'm not saying that you're attacking me, sir. I don't feel like that.
I'm
But
not.
yeah, it's just, I would like to have then that conversation because maybe the scope of work isn't, even though it was provided to me from the water department, and approved from administration, maybe it does lend to more further conversation. And then we can, if it's written, if it's CCNA, then let's go back and let's work it that way.
And if it's a CCNA, we already have firms that have been pre-qualified, so you could sit and negotiate with each of those firms and then bring back your final negotiations to the board with your recommendation.
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair. Well, actually, it is CCNA, and I pulled up the actual definition under Florida statutes, 287.055. This is the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act. Subsection 2A is definitions. Professional services, as my colleague just described, means those services within the scope of practice of architecture, professional engineering, landscape architecture, or registered surveying and mapping as defined by the laws of the state of Florida, or those performed by any architect, professional engineer, landscape architect, or registered surveyor and mapper in connection with his or her professional employment or practice. And when I just looked at the solicitation, one of those requirements does calls out for professional engineering. So I'm very confused as to, back to what Spiritus is saying, how are you already going out for something and then asking for it when it is definitely in fact a CCNA just by its very statutory definition?
Chair, if I may.
You're recognized.
It was not my understanding that the vendor doing owner's rep was doing any engineering work. They was just going to monitor to make sure. So just by them not doing the work, we're not asking, from my understanding, and again, we will seek legal counsel. If they aren't doing the engineering work and they're just monitoring, then no, those who we asked and we looked, it didn't appear to be CCNA, and based upon the scope. So that's why that was kind of like the distinction. They aren't doing engineering work.
Hold on, board member.
So that's why we didn't consider it CCNA. That doesn't mean that, we can have a discussion.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Board member McCoy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Spiritus, you recognized.
So when an engineer uses their expertise to review a project and inspect a project, they are using engineering, and that is engineering. Just because they're not starting from scratch and drawing engineering plans doesn't mean they're not using their engineering expertise and abilities when they review a project and inspect a project. So I would consider this an engineering task, and I would, of course, when we use an engineer, as I said before, we get errors and omissions insurance, which helps protect us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I look forward to the further discussion. And
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
thank you.
7A.
Item 7A, resolution number 020-24UZ, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District authorizing and directing the district's finance director to proceed with the issuance of the district's water and sewer revenue bonds in accordance with the City of Riviera Beach debt management policy in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $400 million, increased from $115 million, authorizing the officials of the district to do all things necessary or advisable in connection therewith, and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have one public comment card on this item. The acceptance of the cards is now closed.
Motion, no doubt.
So moved.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, if I can have the CFO, Mr. Randy Sherman, to make this presentation.
Good evening. The board should be very familiar with this type of resolution. We've brought it forward before. We've referred to it as a reimbursement resolution in the past. Back in 2019, May of 2019, you adopted Resolution 119-21UD that authorized us to move forward with $115 million for the water treatment plant, which was the estimated cost of the project at that time. Now, as we've moved forward, we're now looking at close to $400 million. And Bond Council has requested that we update that resolution. What this resolution again does, in fact, is really two things. It places notice that the district is looking to issue up to $400 million. And it provides, again, that we will possibly be looking for reimbursement, which means we will be spending dollars that once we issue the debt, that we will be able to actually get reimbursed for those dollars once this resolution in place. And if I can address real quick to Dr. Spiritus's point earlier, once this resolution is in place, and then once we have the rates in place that will support the issuance of debt, whether it's WIFIA, SRF, or traditional bonds, then we can actually issue the additional work. So again, as we move forward and progress, as soon as everything is in place to issue the debt, we can then issue those additional work orders for the JV team. And I can take any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
My question is, you're giving yourself pretty much a lot of leeway here in saying that you could do almost anything you need to do to make this happen. Does that include changing the fee schedule?
No, what this does is this is working towards the issuance of bonds. So really what we will start to do is we will start putting together the official statement, so the offering document. We will address the rating agencies and go through that process. Deal with possibly insurance if we were looking for those types of things. But then the bonds themselves and the terms come back to the board for approval. That's what we were looking at approval probably in the April timeframe. And then we close on the bonds probably in early May.
Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
So Randy, so then we're not going to change the fee schedule, your 125% that we're required to have in order to issue a bond for the utility district until after the bonds are issued?
No. Okay.
We'll do
So
that before.
I'm sorry, if I may, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
So if I understood your first question, it doesn't give me the authority to change those rate schedules. We will look to bring the rate schedules. We expect to have the rate study in hand, hopefully by the end of this month, if not early December. We will be looking to bring those rates to the board for approval in January. So once we have, assuming they pass in January and we have this resolution, you literally at the January meeting could be issuing additional work orders. But that's going to be for the board to approve the rates, not for the finance director to approve the rates.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments from the board?
Yeah.
Board Member McCoy, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, your resolution speaks, or at least the title speaks that it's consistent with the City of Riviera Beach's debt management policy, correct?
Correct.
All right, and I have that policy here, and I was trying to figure out both neither in the city's debt management policy nor in the user services agreement does this apply, or how does this apply to the utility special district? Because there's no reference that this is part of one of the services that will be, I guess, we sought for debt management policy. So this doesn't apply to the utility special district.
The utility district did not adopt its own debt policy. So we're saying we will follow the city's debt policy. And if you go through the city's debt policy, it actually does make reference to the utility district bonds. It also makes reference to the stormwater bonds.
Yeah, so what iteration of the policy are you referring to? Because what I have here is the policy from 2013.
No, 2022. I believe you adopted a new policy in 2022.
Well, a part of preparing for this item, I asked for the debt management policy, and this is what I gotten. And if this is as important as it is, it's referenced in our annual report, but it's nowhere on the city's website.
It's on the city website because it is in our annual report.
No,
We put all of the resolutions, the investment policy and the debt policy are in our documents.
All 28, well, there's probably more than 28 pages in there now. So you're saying that that's covered inside the annual report?
Yes.
But Mr. Sherman, why wouldn't it be a standalone document?
It is. We just publish it through that document.
Okay. So,
Our city policies, we do not have a public portal for our city policies. So we publish ours within our document.
okay, so here's what I did. I actually requested this information on the 14th of November, and I've been sitting here a whole entire week waiting on the city's debt management policy, and I was given one by the clerk. How would she have known, or anybody in the clerk's office knows, as a response to a public records request, that they now need to go into an annual report, and that the policy, which was a standalone policy, I might add, if you're saying it was adopted in 2022, is contained in the back of some book, and that doesn't serve anybody any purpose.
Well, I don't know why the clerk didn't find the 2022 policy, but it was brought to the board. It was adopted by resolution.
Okay, well,
The initial one, when I arrived in 2012, the city did not have a debt service policy. So 2013 was the first policy that we adopted, and then we updated it in 2022.
okay, well, so can you provide that to her?
I can certainly provide that to you.
Okay, I think it's important to know, and then to ask a clerk to go and find a debt management policy without having any point of reference, because I didn't know it was passed in 2022. I was still looking at the 2013 debt management policy, which is a standalone policy. Why this is not readily accessible, and even more importantly, listed on the finance page website, I just don't think is being transparent.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognize.
Councilperson, I've already authorized staff in my office to look at ordinances, resolutions, and meeting minutes, and setting aside a specific page on the website that has all those listed, the actions that the board takes. And so they're working on that portal right now that you'll be able to get into those documents or any action the board takes without having to call the clerk's office. So that is something that we are working on.
Well, I appreciate that going forward, but to sit here and being asked to support this, saying that it's in accordance with a debt management policy that's literally buried in the bottom of some report that comes out once a year, that nobody actually goes through the hard copy. Nobody goes through the hard copy, read every single page of that. So, this is not, in my opinion, I just don't think this is ripe. And let me clarify, ripe, R-I-P-E, not right. This is not right for us to even deliberate on if you're saying it's consistent with the policy. And nobody could even find the policy.
Do we have any public comment cards, Madam Clerk?
And that would be Lady Goldwire.
Welcome, Ms. Goldwire.
Welcome. Good evening. My question is, and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting what I'm reading, there is conversation about this bonds being floored at 115 million, but then there is mention of the ability to have expenditures go up to 400 million, and then the language reads in such a way that you kind of have a $285 million blank check. Being that there isn't any oversight or a diminished amount of oversight in the utility district as is, the question is who monitors that? What change, what parameters are in place to ensure that we just aren't spending to be spending? This is a lot of money. I think that it should be entered into, this agreement should be entered into with some consideration for the fact that it's a lot of money and there is no oversight. Are we reading it, correctly in that there is the possibility that you can kind of just do whatever you want depending on the advice you get for a difference of $285 million, or is this that just informal language and out there to be out there? That's more a question than a comment if someone can ask. The second thing I want to point out is it's really difficult to come in and listen to all of the formalities associated with these meetings. There's a lot of us who want to go right to public comments because there's other things to do, but nobody's really discussed the elephant in the room. And as I sit in here and I watch, look at the logo, it's dead center. I believe the tagline that attaches itself to it is what's beneath the surface. And all of us are thinking the same thing. And now it's going to cost upward of $400 million to make any necessary repairs. In addition to the first question, I like to go back to this logo, how it came to be, how the tagline came to be. Was it something that you all authorized? And now that we're having a conversation about what's beneath the surface, is it going to really cost us $400 million to fix it? Or are we going to go back and do some common sense approach to this, in that there are still living legends in the city who can tell you a lot about what it takes to maintain what we have while we work towards getting something new before we get in, obligated to spend this kind of money without it being a little bit more careful consideration applied to it. So those two questions are on the floor, and I'm hopeful somebody can answer them for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. March.
Mr. Chair, that is the end of public comment for this item.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Spears, you recognize.
Yeah.
You recognize Dr. Spears.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
I'm just curious, can you tell me how you decide who bond counsel is going to be?
We actually had an RFP process for bond counsel.
And the board doesn't approve that? It's approved by staff?
Oh, no, the board approved it.
Board approved it?
Yeah, yes.
I remember we had a discussion, we permitted you to go out to find the bond, right? To look for the bond, but I didn't know that we actually approved the firm.
No, the bond counsel was selected years back, not recently.
So their fees and things don't change from that far back to now?
Well, again, they fall under the attorney process within the procurement code. So again, we issued a solicitation and we took bids, and the bond counsel that was hired at that time has remained our bond counsel.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sherman. Additional comments? Mr. Evans or Mr. Sherman, do we want to answer or respond to the comments from the residents?
Mr. Chair,
You recognize.
with respect to the authorizing resolution, Obviously, there's information that has to come back before this board before you authorize the expenditure of any monies. And as they go through the design process, this board will be the board that authorizes, and you will get to see the expenditures. Staff is not going to invariably go out and borrow additional capital that's not necessary without authorization from the board. So there will be subsequent bites of the apple that this board will have concerning this particular project and other projects at the utility district.
Yeah, thank you. Board Member McCoy.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman, so this increase of 285,000, was this encompassed in the Raptellus?
Residents, if we can, the noise is traveling up to the front.
The Raptellus utility rate study, was this encompassed in there?
Yes.
Okay, so, and the percentage increase is going to be what for utility rates to build these reserves to be able to cover debt service for that?
So when they had looked at the preliminary numbers back in August and they were here in front of you speaking, they were looking at probably a high end of 20% rate increases to get up to the point where they could start paying. I believe where they are at this point, now that they have a full year of 2024, I believe those rates are actually going to be coming down. I don't want to, I haven't seen them, but just in the conversation that I had, I do not believe anymore that it's going to be 20% for 5 years. I believe it'll be lower than that, but again, when we get the report, we will certainly share it.
Sure. So let me make sure I'm clear. In 2022, we authorized the rate increase, which, Chair?
You recognize? I'm sorry. Excuse me. If we can't stop speaking in the audience, the noise is traveling up here.
So in 2022, we authorized a rate increase, which already included a cost escalation or rate escalation every October 1st for 4 or 5 years, I believe it was.
It was a 5-year rate increase, and it was to address the inflationary changes that the district was experiencing. Because recall, we didn't have sufficient not sufficient dollars, but we didn't have sufficient budget capacity to make our R&R payment to the ECR, if you recall that a couple of years ago. So it was to address issues like that. So operational issues, inflationary issues, and to be able to provide some pay-as-you-go capital to the district to do some of their other non-water treatment plant projects. But at that time, very clear, we presented numbers at that point with $200 million for a water treatment plant, but that rate was not adopted at that time just to deal with the other issues.
So just so I'm clear, and actually it was 2023 when we adopted those rates, correct?
Right, 2023.
Yeah, not 22.
Correct.
So in 2023, those rates were adopted October 2023. We just had one October 2024, 25, 26, and 27 that we can expect the rates to increase on every October 1st.
Correct.
And now what you're saying, to cover this $285 million difference, we're going to add an additional 20% rate increase on top of the already 27%?
Yeah, so when you adopted the 5 years in 2023, and you're correct on that, it included the last 3 years were just CPI type adjustments. So it was 3%, 3%, 3%. So now that we're going back and adding into the calculations the cost of the water treatment plant, those 3% will be replaced with another percentage. What that is at this point, again, I don't have that information. But again, originally, we were looking at 20% rate increases. And that's, again, just on the water side, not on the wastewater side.
Coming down to the dais. We're going to take public comments after this card, so you'll have an opportunity to speak. But please, if you're going to continue to whisper, please step out. Thank you, residents.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead, board member.
lastly, so we're already into the second rate increase. October 1st, 2025, we can expect another 27% increase. So October 1st, 2026, we're gonna move to the 20%, or is that now gonna be compounded on top of? Is that gonna go in effect for the next 2025 year?
Now, I
October
think
1st.
2025 will not be 20%. I think it'll be lower than 20%, but it certainly will be more than the 3%, which again was just an operational CPI.
Right, but you just said the last couple years is going to be 3%. So you mean the last 2 years, because I counted 23, we got
Right,
I
correct.
counted 24, and I counted 25. We've already experienced the 23 rate water increase. We just experienced the 24 rate water increase, October 1st, that just was last month. So you're saying next year in 2025, we're only gonna have 3%?
What you have already adopted was 3% October 1 of 2025, 3% October 1, 2026, and 3% of October 2027. What I'm saying is those 3% will be replaced with the new increases that will cover the cost of the water treatment plant.
Okay, and what's that, what is that gonna generate in terms of reserves for us to fund debt service?
How much will it increase the revenues? Is that the question? I'm sorry.
So these rate increases, how much money is that going to generate in order to cover the debt service of $400 million? Like, so for instance, we've now had rate increases for a whole entire year. How much money have we built up in reserves that's gonna go towards debt service?
So we haven't built any additional funds in reserve because we've been using it
Pays-
to pay,
you
and
go.
again, to pay some of the capital projects that we've been approving.
Yeah, but Mr. Sherman, at some point, right, we're not gonna be able to continue in this path. Like, we're using the current 27% increase to cover pay-as-you-go capital. But how do we begin to transition to fund $400 million? Because the pay-as-you-go capital is regular operating, I mean, these are operating capital needs that we have already in the capital plan.
Right, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I'm saying this because when I look at the CIP for the utility district, we're covering that now. At what point does the rate increase start to kick in to cover the $400 million debts just for the water plant? Is that 3 years from now?
No, it'll start in October 1 of 2025. But again, it'll gradually go up because we most likely, because we haven't structured anything yet, but most likely will have no debt service during the construction period. So that construction period is 30 to 36 months. So if we capitalize the interest and in essence borrow the interest to make those interest payments. But again, what that does is it builds up to your debt service. So by the time you get to the point where you start making debt service payments, okay, you'll be at the rate level that you need to be at. Now, again, the debt service, we already have debt service out there. That debt service goes away in 2036. So we will be layering on top of that debt service, and then the rest of it will then, in essence, fall past 2036. So we have to build that rate up so we don't come in, let's just say, 2027 with a 60% rate increase. So you're going to do it gradually over time to build up till you get to the point where you have enough to pay your debt service. And in the meantime, if you've got those dollars, again, it'll add to your ability to pay for cash for some projects. Because any dollar, we're looking at a 30-year debt on these bonds. Any dollar you can remove from a borrowing will, in essence, save you $2 at the end because the interest is almost going to double what you're paying. So if you're borrowing $200 million, you're going to be paying almost $200 million of interest at today's rates. rates obviously will change, but at today's rates, it's almost a dollar for dollar. So anything you can remove, as we talk about the SRF, we talk about WIFIA, we talk about debt forgiveness, talk about grants. And the last item on the agenda today, we're going to talk about impact fees. Any of those dollars that can reduce this 400 million so it doesn't have to be borrowed means that we're not paying interest on those dollars as well. And that's where if you know, we're looking to, in essence, take this 400 million and we're cutting it up into various pieces. One, to prevent paying interest before we really need to be paying interest, but two, to make sure that it is sized right and we can take advantage of all the federal and state and grants and other abilities to keep the cost to the ratepayers as low as we can.
Okay, so last question, $285 million increase. What is going to be the interest that we pay on that?
If we went out and borrowed if we went out and borrowed $400 million today for 30 years, the interest would be close to $400 million over that 30-year period.
I was speaking of percentage interest because. Or wait, maybe is it the maximum authorized, legally authorized?
Yeah, no, we looked at it. Matter of fact, when they were putting the WIFIA presentation together, we looked at both the WIFIA and the bond market, and they are both right around 4.6% right now.
Okay, what about the interest rate for the other Avalon bonds that were issued for?
So when we issued the ad valorem bonds for the 2 fire stations, we were under 2%. That's just the way the market's changed in that 3-year period.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Dr. Spirit, you're recognized.
So I think we have to understand a couple of things here. We had an expert come here and give us rate guesstimates or estimates of what the increases are going to be based on the bond. And over the 5-year period, he was basing that the rates were going to have to go up 100%.
Right.
So I don't think things have changed. As a matter of fact, I think we actually increased the price since we had that expert do his rate analysis at that time. So it's probably going to be higher. The 27% increase that we received over the last couple of years, I think most of the community thought that that was for the new water plant. But we learned later on that you needed the money for the old water plant. So the money went in that direction. So I think we have to be honest with everyone, and they have to expect that even if we use the WIFIA money, the only good thing about WIFIA, one of the main things about WIFIA, of course, I don't think it impacts your bonding, and you don't start paying until 5 years after the plant is operating. You don't start paying back the money. So that will help us. But I do think that we have to expect that there's going to be a tremendous increase in our fee schedule. And we also have to be aware of the fact that our sewer system is in horrible condition as well, and is going to need similar type investments, in the sewer infrastructure. So we have to do a better job, I think, of applying for state and federal funding. I'm glad that we have Dr. Harris on board right now, but we have to do a better job because we didn't apply for one grant under the infrastructure program when this came out, and other programs that were available. We just have to do a better job in making sure that we leverage our money with state and federal funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy,
No?
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
The item passes with Vice Chair McCoy dissenting.
We're going to go into general public. We're going to go into general public comment. Please be reminded, the Board of the Utility District has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which is posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the board may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or the building. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we have 9 public comment cards. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Thank you.
The first speakers are Scott Lewis, Lloyd Brown, Rochelle Hughes, and Marvelous Washington.
Good evening, it's Scott Lewis, Wilma Circle. I don't know where to begin. First is this OIG report, which I haven't heard discussed yet. It didn't get added to the agenda. Pisses me off that y'all sweep this stuff under the... I mean, there was a crime that happened here. Are you going to do anything? Has anybody been fired? Has anybody been suspended? I mean, for the water, not the other issues. All right? Have you done anything as a board? We want to see something dramatic. I know you're looking towards the future, but you're building a future. You just authorized $400 million for officials to approve. What? What officials? In this district? I trust the officials? Are you kidding me? I wasn't born yesterday. And I look here, and I don't mean to pick on this, but it's out front. It's a flyer from someone running for election, and happens to be the chair, about all the accomplishments. I read the whole thing. The word water isn't here. It's not here. This is the #1 issue in this city. What are you going to do? You can't just sit on your hands. Listen to me come up here like a madman and be pissed off because I say bad words. Do something. I mean, in 2016, almost 9 years ago, a manager was fired over what? Water quality. Oh my God, here we are, 9 years later. How we doing? Drinking shit. All right? Not too good. I don't know who's been fired. I hear about resignations of these people. I stood here last month and asked, I'll sign the criminal complaint. Nobody's come to me with one. There was a crime committed against me, against every resident in this city, and nothing's happened. That is unacceptable. You are the leaders of this city. Do something. Do it dramatic. I mean, I don't know. We're talking about forcing people that are on fixed incomes west of here into bankruptcy because you're trying to fund a water plant that you can't run because you don't have any money. Has anybody spent the money to get a professional research of either buying from Seacoast or Palm Beach County? Shut this whole discussion down. Get rid of the district. Buy it from someone that knows what they're doing and can actually show us and that we could trust. Because I do not trust what I'm looking at right here. And you shouldn't trust it. You shouldn't ask us to trust it. And please don't ask us to sit here for 2 hours waiting for public comments that were scheduled at 5:45. All right? That's what gets people talking in the back of the room. Because you won't let us talk.
Thank you for your comments.
How you doing? My name is Lloyd Brown. Let me just say this. I know y'all be talking about the quorum and rules and all this. I heard 2 people up here, y'all talking back and forth, and people looking at you. It's like you are role models. You are people who supposed to be looked up to, almost like a football player. Some police, they're role models too. But I'm saying y'all act like y'all on the corner, tit for tat. I mean, this is like a reality show. I thought 90 Day, whatever that is, where them ladies get married at night, I thought that was interesting, but this is more interesting. But coming over here, you don't do anything. I mean, honestly, we got bad water. Where is the money that, you putting in this community garden? Why don't you take that from there? The money you sending people over there to do Rock Callaway Amphitheater that we don't go there. You got them cleaning it up weekends and months, and they spend money on that Rock Callaway Amphitheater, and we don't have nothing going on over there. So why don't you transfer all that money from those little community gardens and all this other little BS you got going on and put that into something going to water plant? You know what? I was on top of the water plant when the water was good. Me and a friend, he worked at my school. He went to school with me. We used to go smoke herb on the top of the water plant. The water was really good then. And he was getting high. and the water was good. Isn't that something? And then Trotsky, I got to tell you, I don't hate you. When you came up and told me, tell my brother, you should be the one I should be looking up to. You should be the role model. And then your attitude toward people, that's what I don't like. It ain't you. Ain't nothing about you. You black, I love you because of that. But it's your personality. Let me tell you something. That's all that I don't like, your personality. See, you in a position to where you have to take all this from us. You too, Lawson, and you too, man. You can't come up and say something because somebody say something about you. Me, I'll be like a duck. I let it roll right off my back. Like when you call me brother and then you say you had other words to call me. I really don't care. It don't hurt at all. Like my mama told me, let it be like water on a duck back. Just let it roll off. But you're in a position to where you should be a role model. And then the water is bad. I can understand this man getting mad. How many weeks and months y'all been coming over here talking about the water? Take all that money that you going on trips to Washington, D.C. and all that, put that back in the pot. I mean, you going up there and ain't nothing, still ain't happening. You just know what programs they got, but ain't nothing going on with them. That don't make no sense. And I mean, I'm not a genius, and I hear you talking about engineers. I work with some engineers. They were dumb as hell. I was the one that built the stands for them. They just had the degree. That don't mean nothing. That's like a mechanic who don't know shit about cars.
The next speaker is Rochelle Hughes, Marvelous Washington, Chandra Stringer, and Lady Goldwire.
Good evening, Rochelle Hughes from Lone Pine Estates. Good evening, everyone on the dais and the city staff. Yeah, I'm a little upset that we're not talking about what's been coming out in the news lately. It's kind of like, let's just no one will know. So some of my concerns are on November 12th, Melvin Pickney resigned. Do we have a new plant manager? Or when will one be hired, and who is going to vet that new plant manager or superintendent? I think it was November 14th, it came out that duct tape has been used for maintenance. Along with the water basins are rusting in the southern part of the city, which is where I live, southwest. There's cracks in the covers of the wells. No one's talking about that. Is it true? Is it not true? It's out there. Guess what? That's what we're reading. So we're coming to you for answers. We're looking to you for the answers and what is the city going to do? November 18th, this OIG report came out. And yes, 4 former staff people failed to carry out their essential duties. But what struck me the most was 130 occasions between the dates of January to September 2023 were discovered. We only learned about something that happened in June of 2023 and July of 2023 with a notice that came out in January of 2024. Nothing was ever said about January, February, March, April, May. And now we don't have a compliance manager. I think I just heard somebody say the compliance manager resigned. When are we going to hire a new one? Are we going to hire a new one? Who's going to vet this new compliance manager? Who's going to vet, and when are we going to hire those people that are no longer with us that played integral parts in running this utility district? That's what we want to hear. And we've been talking about a new water plant forever. We got to do something about it. We got people who are sick. We from drinking water. I don't drink the water, but what we need you to tell us, what are we going to do going forward? Not what happened in the past, not this whole thing of interrogating our new director of procurement. Come on.
Thank you for your comments.
Marvelous Washington, Chandra Stringer, Lady Goldwire, and Mary Brown.
Marvelous Washington, Lone Pine Estates. Good evening. I guess I have to echo the same sentiments as Scott and Rochelle said. I guess we came here looking for answers. And basically, what I heard was a bunch of double talk, um, roundaway talking, not telling us the truth. And I hate to tell everybody here, if you've been around the city for as long as I've been around and attend these meetings, most times you don't get the complete answer. There's lack of transparency. Employees get up here and talk around in circles to avoid telling the truth of what's really happening. And the reason being is oftentimes the city used the media to go after individual employees instead of addressing the issue that's in the room. Leadership starts with leadership. So you guys can sit up there and act like you don't want to hold people accountable and continue to kick the can up and down the road. Because what I realized from this entire meeting is that we're paying a lot of money for consultants. In addition to, we're paying a lot of money for employees to work. So we're paying for opinions for consultants, but employees don't have the experience to make sure the consultants are consulting on the correct work. So we're basically paying double. Then you have the Mr. Sherman comes up here asking for rate increases, and we all understand how that works. But we're paying a rate increase right now, and his comment was it won't be compounded. My issue is I don't believe that. Reason being is we know better. We've seen better. We know how much we've been paying in our utility rates, and we can't even consume the water. So put yourself in the position of the residents at this moment. And when you guys have this OIG report come out and nobody wants to address the elephant in the room, that test results were changed. They didn't change those test results because they dreamed about it the night before. This has been a common denominator with the administration of the city. They're not truthful. And this is not by coincidence, this is by design. And until we address that issue, we're going to continuously be in the same predicament that we've been in year after year. I hate when I hear we've always had bad water or it's always been that way. Well, everybody that's been here has always came in saying they're going to come in with a fix. You're going to make that top priority. And unfortunately, it's not top priority. And I'm very upset because Mr. Evans, for you to make a comment saying you didn't know about it and you're not responsible for it, it's concerning to me. Because what you do know is that your check is there biweekly. We paid double for your insurance and your benefits. You made a lot of money off this city in relates to pandemic pay and everything else. You basically going to be able to retire from the city. So you know all those things, but the things that we pay you to know about, you remain silent on. Thank you.
Good evening, Chandra Stringer, to the Honorable Mayor, to Chairperson, all the council, Mr. Evans, and I don't see legal, but I just want to be, I have a couple of questions and a comment. I'm not going to reiterate everything everybody else said because I have to tell you something, you guys. It is very emotional coming to these meetings. It really is. I mean, I had to sit, pray, cry, all of it. And you say, well, maybe you shouldn't be that way, but when you're talking about 37,000 plus residents' lives, it is concerning because our families are getting sick, people are going to the hospital, and when I'm telling them about the water, and most of their issues are digestive issues. Doctors can't find out what's going on, they don't know what's happening, but they're missing work, children are getting sick. I am not here to point my fingers at anybody, but you guys, this has to stop. I mean, it has to stop to the point of really sitting down and having an honest talk with yourself as a leader first, and then where are you going to measure leadership in this particular establishment so residents can feel safe, they can stop spending extra money that they do not have for medical services, and don't assume people have $6 or $7 to buy 4 and 5 cases of water a month because you can. That's a big deal. And the last thing, the last meeting that was about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 hours that I actually watched via YouTube, there was a discussion in regards to a grant. We keep talking about this low interest loan, but there was a grant, and the name of the grant is Inflation Reduction Act Community Change Grant.
I went backwards and forward with Chairperson Lawson and Mr. whoever is in part of the grant cycle. Well, lo and behold, I guess there was a decision made after the meeting because what I remember in the meeting that there was supposed to be a bid sent out, and then you guys was going to give the community organization 7 days. Whatever happened, the decision was made to use the CDC on the grant. My question is, was the grant submitted? Because the grant is due. It could present up to almost $20 million to an effort for this particular city for water infrastructure and different services. And that same pool of resources, Dr. Spears, as you guys been talking about, has multiple grants that can benefit this city. And only thing I keep hearing, loan, bond. Like, when are we going to get to a point to understand that citizens may not sit in your seats, but we have some kind of common sense? And thank God for Google. We can look up this stuff because when the discussion was had, I sat up another hour after the meeting and researched and found out that all these grants was here. And only thing people can say, oh, well, now so-and-so is not here. We found this equipment. Now this is not here. This is going on. I mean, how can you say you have our best interests at heart and it doesn't, no actions prove that? Thank you.
Any other comments?
The next speaker is Lady Goldwire, followed by Mary Graham, Erica Davis, Doretta Paul.
Good evening. ER doctor to speak with patient and recommend admission. Patient states, I have too much to do. I cannot stay here tonight. It is explained to patient risk of leaving against medical advice, such as worsening of condition to include necrotic bowel, sepsis, organ rupture, MODS, cardiac arrest, heart attack, or even death. Patient signs out. Patient returns next day, 5/30/2023. That is an excerpt from my medical record. The only reason that it stands out to me is because I spent this time period here with my father remodeling the house. Both of us ill, couldn't figure out why. What I could think of, because my father retired from this institution with 28 years under his belt, was I told you, don't drink the water. It's bottled water over there. You need to drink it. Processing that now, I go back to a phone call that I placed to the city of Riviera Beach, asking were there any outbreaks during that time, May 30th, 2023. I had done that after the report was released, and they said specifically it was July and August that we needed to be concerned with, or June. I took it completely off of my radar. We are well aware that I've had no issue suing the city, but that can't be the answer all the time. This is a problem. I'm a 48-year-old woman in generally good health. I don't want to know about, the possibility of having a heart attack or sepsis or dying because there is a very, very strong chance that it's something wrong with the water. You've got people complaining about eczema, itching, skin disorders. Somebody knew that the water was bad. Somebody took the effort to change the results. Nobody changed those results on their own accord. I believe that someone was enticed or felt as if they had to change results to keep their job. That's more or less been the consensus here. I'm also a person that's very familiar with retaliation and hostile environments. People are afraid and their job's scared, and everybody doesn't have the bandwidth to just get out in front of an issue and say what it is. You've had more than one person on the council just turn a blind eye. Mr. Evans was hired to replace a manager that was fired because of the water. And at that point, $10,000 was at stake. Now we have $1.5 million. That's a problem.
The next speaker is Mary Graham, Erica Davis, Doretta Paul, and Cindy March.
Mayor Graham, Riviera Beach. First of all, I would like to say again a happy Thanksgiving to all of the residents inside as well as outside of the city. You know, I sit and I hear not just from on the inside, but on the outside. And I hear about what we don't have. Nothing is gonna fall down out the sky if we do not make it happen. Miss Brown has been in management where she had employees, and some of you employees, Miss Brown had them. They were trained well. I am a person that when I give you a job, I expect for you to do that job. You are accountable for that job there. I can't run all over the place here. I'm trying to make sure my bottom line, my revenues and my profits are meeting for my company. That's why we hire you. Mr. Lowe, Mr. Doe, Mr. Pickney, and Mr. Williams, you're responsible for what has happened here because you were entrusted to do that job there. But you know what? You didn't give a damn. Kids, close your ears. You didn't give a damn. Because you know why they didn't give a damn? Because some of them did not live in the city. And they was obligated in doing other things. They already had their retirement money. So you know what? Come to work when you get ready to come. All of us have asked, why did they do this? Because they didn't have no interest. They was getting paid big time monies. And they should have been out the door. Because Miss Brand would have fired them if I had known about this here. But see, but they kept all of this here. Because it was to their advantage. Disgruntled, dissatisfied, no interest. These employees comes like this. And this is what they do to companies and organizations. When they cannot have their way, when they are confronted to, okay, I need some uptick from you. I need some productivity from you. Then they get mad. They want more money, but they are salary employees. You knew you were salary when you took this job. No. They're responsible for what has happened in this city here. Because every man is accountable for their own actions. We teach our kids. Well, watch when you do something, and if it's wrong, you're going to lay in that bed and you're going to be accountable for it. No.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
They should have left, and they should have been.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brown.
They did this to this city.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
And didn't give a damn.
Erica Davis, Doretta Polk, and Cindy March.
Erica Davis, Riviera Beach. Well, we're going to put the blame back to 2020 when it was all brought to the board when they first got in. Mr. McCoy, I have your Channel 5 News video here from when you were going to sue the board for the same discussion we just had about the taxes. And you delayed it and they wouldn't vote on it because you were ranting and raving about getting this project started. And now do you see the repercussions from it? $400 million later, Mr. McCoy, because you always got to mind this and rage for that and mind this and micromanage this instead of allowing people to do their job. You're supposed to be a team player. You've been here 6 years. We've sat up here for several projects. Marina project, 8 years. You just decided when you're getting ready to leave to throw that out. We could have had this project halfway done before you all's foolishness, since you want to throw some blame around. Y'all stop blaming Mr. Evans for things. He brought it here, and I'm going to keep standing up here saying that. You can look at me like all you want to, because I got it right here, Channel 5 News with your face on it, and I'll play it so everybody can see it. I'm going to play it so everybody can hear it. 2020.
Oh, yeah. You gonna sue Mr. Evans, you gonna sue everybody. Mm-hmm. Suing his own city. At the heart of the dispute is a rate hike for water bills. The lawsuit is in Riviera Beach and comes just weeks after an increase was approved. WPTV News Channel 5's Todd Wilson has both sides in this dispute and just where that money could go.
At the moment, the city of Riviera Beach is divided. On one side, you have the utility district, which is primarily made up of city council members. On the other side of this dispute is City Councilman Trodrick McCoy.
When we haven't even recovered as an economy, much less as a city.
McCoy says during a September 6th board meeting, the district approved a rate hike of 30% over the next 5 years. He argues the district passed the increase without providing proper notice to residents beforehand.
It forced me to file a complaint for an injunction to stop this from taking place and also to declare it unlawful.
City Manager Jonathan Evans says the increase is about raising money. He says their current water plant has just 5 to 10 years
Thank you for your
left.
comments, ma'am. Thank you for your comments.
Significant infrastructure.
So, yeah, nobody wants to hear the truth, but they want to see what and hear what they want to hear.
Comments,
But
Ms.
yeah, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you
yeah,
for your comments, Ms. Davis.
Yeah, I got you.
The next speaker is Doretta Paul. Doretta Paul.
Welcome, Ms. Paul.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Park, and I'm a citizen of Riviera Beach. And I just want to remind the citizens at home and here, and all the citizens of Riviera Beach, there was a young man who came to the podium and said that he was hired by Mr. Lowe. They worked together in Boynton Beach. And he had to deal with a lot of issues that caused him very much conflict within himself concerning the water. And he was told, do not put Mrs. Deidre Jacobs nor Mr. Evans on the emails. So they didn't know none of this was going on. He said that eventually he did feel that he had to talk to Mrs. Jacobs, but this was going on well before he was even hired. So let's not try to put this on Mr. Evans or Ms. Deidre Jacobs, because if you don't be aware of what's going on and not told what's going on, that's wrong. And this probably has been going on for years while they were the director, assistant director, and that's not right. So let's not forget that. And Mr. Evans, I was just wondering, how is Mr. Harris doing on the grants? Is he making any accomplishments? I know he's working very hard, but we do need the finances. And like I said, this has been decades. I lived here all my life. Our water has been bad basically all my life. So this has been going on for decades and decades of neglect that we had council people and managers put the water department in the back burner. And this is how we end up in this horrible situation. Horrible. And I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
The last speaker is Cindy March.
Everybody. I'm Cindy March. My question is,
Where do we go from here? I was in the hospital for 11 days. Felder, thank you for checking on me. Dr. Spiritus, thank you for checking on me. I didn't know whether I was going to come out. I went from the second floor to the cardiac floor to the infectious disease floor. I didn't know who was elected president until Thursday. I didn't want to see no TV. I didn't want no lights on. Every time they went out my room, I asked them, could you please close the door? You know why? I had to tell Jesus to come in my room. I was sick, y'all. I went to church on a Sunday, came home and sold potato pies. By 5 o'clock that afternoon, my mouth got dry. My stomach swelled up. It came from the front and the back. My level for my acute pancreatitis was supposed to be 200. It was 22,000. They had said they had to take me down to Broward to do a process to get the bacteria out my body. I was very fearful. But by me keeping that door closed and talking to my Savior, not who y'all think the Messiah in the city of Revere Beach, okay? It's time out for us chit-chatting with one another. Evans very well know. Because if this finance man wrote that first check, he had to know what he wrote that first check for. So don't tell me he didn't know. He knew how much depth he knew. See, that's the problem. When you take your friends and put politics before people and don't get involved in your community, this is the kind of stuff we have. Kashama, Lanier, Doug, Evans, they ran on clean water. They got a glass on Facebook with their pictures on it. Oh, let's not forget about Botel. The water, there's nothing wrong with the water. Lanier, nothing personal with your baby. I didn't come to that workshop to disturb your workshop. But don't you ever have the audacity to miss a DUI, not wanting to take a DUI with saying the yellow stuff in the water, if your water yellow is clean. That's like comparing apples to oranges. We got to get away from this politics. I don't knock on the residents, those for over 30 years asking for certain people vote because I just want you to vote because I know them. Learn y'all candidates for yourself. It's a March election coming up and they still running on clean water when another report came out that's going to cost y'all $1.5 million. I was campaigning for Glenn Spiritus. One guy came in a city car. I said, do you need me to move off this corner? He said, no, ma'am, I need to talk to you because we can't talk to the leader. He said, we got a lot of bass around here that is no good. Doug, I want you to stand your ground. Put it on agenda to fire this man. The fire DJ Jacobs.
Ms. March, thank you
do
for your
what you got to
comments.
do.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. March.
Comment.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, you want to comment on any public comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. With regards to the key level staff positions that are vacant at the Utility Special District, we are moving with an executive recruitment firm to attract candidates for the Utility District Director position. HR is also working on some affirmative marketing for the Assistant Director as well as the Water Plant Manager and the Compliance Manager. U.S. Water is helping us with regards to the operational elements at the water treatment plant, as well as assisting us on the compliance side. And so we understand what the requirements are for reporting, and we have our operators as well as additional personnel that are all leaning in to be able to mitigate any of the staff positions that are vacant. Our hope is to fill a lot of these critical positions here within the next 45 to 60 days. Obviously, with the holidays, that may be some challenge, but we are looking to fill a lot of these positions. We did put in the application for the community change grant. That did go in, and we did have conversations with the board with regards to that. And then we were Dr. Harris's first grant that he submitted on behalf of the City of Riviera Beach. We were successful in the Safe Streets and Roads for All, and we received $200,000, and we just received notification on that matter on Monday.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, 7B. Sorry, go ahead. Mayor?
Yes, I'm-
Yeah, I do.
go ahead, I'll go after you.
Mr. Evans, let's not go ahead and skip over all the important things that were stated during public comments. And I think it's just not fair, Mr. Evans, because, and I'm gonna be very direct, and matter of fact, I'm gonna look at you because I want you to see what just happened. You had a resident to get up here and play something on a video that came from a news clip and made it and suggested as if I held down the process for the rate water. Chair,
Residents, residents, again, if we are going to be screaming out from the public, we will ask you to leave the room. And we're not going to be asking again. Thank you. Nate, if you can't have an officer stand over here. Thank you. Board member, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm particularly concerned, Mr. Evans, because seemingly you like to gloss over all of the nice stuff. I get myself crucified in the court of public opinion because I do what is right. You guys have stood up here and straight out disrespected the board and more importantly, disrespected the people. What that lady failed to realize, that 2020 lawsuit was because the disrespect that you and Randy Sherman and your administration has done, not just to the board, but to the 13,000 utility account holders, to the 55,000 residents and people in and out of the city that we provide water to. And you know, just like I know, Mr. Evans, the basis for that lawsuit was based primarily in statute because you and Randy Sherman took illegal acts to raise the water. And just so I can clarify, and I know Ms. Erica Davis doesn't have a utility account, but let me go ahead and explain to her what the statute requires that a municipality is supposed to do. And before I bought the lawsuit, I took this information to the assistant city manager and said, hey, this is not proper. You have to give notice of a public hearing before you raise the water rates. That was disregarded because she deferred to Randy Sherman. And guess what? We had never done it before in the past. It's been on the book since 2000. So I don't like to get crucified when you and your administration don't do what you have to do to comply with state law. And just for clarification, Chair, if I can have the privilege, because again, I don't think everybody knows this, but water or sewer utilities notice, this is 180.136 of the Florida statutes. Before a local government water or sewer utility increases any rate, charge, or fee for water or sewer utility service, the utility shall provide notice of the proposed increase to each customer of the utility through the utility billings process. The notice shall state the date, the time, and place of the meeting of the governing board of the local government. So two things happened there. Number one, there was never any notice, and there was no public hearing. But I can't walk in the city hall on any given day without somebody sitting here telling me they can't afford their water bill. I took a solemn oath to uphold the laws of the state of Florida and to adhere to the charter and the code of ordinances. So, Mr. Evans, I just think it's unfair for me that you would sit up here and address and gloss over the nice things like personnel, but you got board members that stood for what was right, that stood on principle. And you know what she failed to realize? Do you know what the disposition of that case was? The city agreed that they never did notice. So clearly, McCoy, the only benefit that I got was the 4 or 5, maybe 500 and some odd dollars that I expended out of my own pocket to be reimbursed for my costs and fees. So if anything, you know, I much rather words like thank you for taking one for the team. Thank you for making sure that everybody in the city had an opportunity to come to a public meeting to have their voices heard on a rate water increase that nobody, absolutely not one person in 2020 got up at a public meeting and said anything, whether or not they supported or was against a rate water increase. So for all intents and purposes, Mr. Evans, you need to take responsibility because I'll take you back to something else. In 2019, resolution 32-19, you specifically stood up here and demanded that the board gave you authority to oversee the utility district. Everybody up here voted to support that except for me. Because when I read the charter, oversight and day-to-day operations calls out the utility special district board. And because of that, right, the board thought it was more important, and I respect the decision of the board, and you asked specifically for the supervisory authority, and the resolution calls out the Riviera Beach, City of Riviera Beach created an independent special district, which we know is incorrect. It's actually a dependent special district. And then you go on to say the city entered into an agreement with the USD to provide certain support services. And ultimately, pursuant to the utility service agreement between the city of Riviera Beach and USD, the city manager is hereby delegated the authority to supervise the district utility director and provide all necessary services to the district. So as far as I'm concerned, not only are you in charge of the services that's for the district operation, but certainly you or your delegate should have sent out notice. So I don't like to get my behind chewed out because I got some resident that may not always know what the actual truth is. But Mr. Evans, at what point in these 6 years that we've been here are you going to own accountability that you and your staff that just may be overwhelmed? And I get it, but it shouldn't fall on me as if we are doing it. We're very much limited from what we can do and tell staff. But Mr. Evans, if I go to you and I tell you something is wrong, and I admit this was not something that I brought to your attention, I shared it with Ms. Jacobs, but still, it was disregarded and it left me no option. She did not allow it to go through all the way where you responded and said, well, we have utility district needs. Well, guess what? I need $5 million. I can't go run into Bank of America and take it. I have to make sure that I earn it a legal way. And what you did is the same thing. You guys went here and took illegal money, which you were not entitled to because you didn't follow the requisite requirement. So I shouldn't have to be, put up like this as if we're the bad guys when the responsibility ultimately falls on staff. And you know what? To what these speakers said, there's been absolutely no accountability. Mr. Evans, I'm telling you, my patience are wearing very thin. Very thin.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Mr. Chair, may I have an opportunity?
You recognize?
Councilperson McCoy, we've had the opportunity to work together for 6 years now, and I've never disrespected you nor this board, first and foremost. There has been 6 years where persons have come to this podium and have thrown out allegations on a multitude of different things, and I've never entertained most of those allegations. If there was a situation where a person came in public comment and shared a news story, simplistically, you could have asked for me to provide some clarity with regards to that. I didn't ask that individual to share that information. And my comments and remarks would have been to you, councilperson, absolutely, I can provide clarity in that particular situation. But I don't entertain hearsay, speculation, or people's interpretation of what the facts are. When I address the questions that persons have in the public, they are bona fide questions. I didn't entertain the comments that were made because I know exactly what the facts are. And if you wanted me to address those, I would have said that the city did not follow the process that is prescribed by law, and we had to go through a process to provide the appropriate notice. It was never, ever intentional or intended to allow for persons to come and speak disparagingly about you or the board. And quite frankly, I defend the board every opportunity I get. So this is about us working together collectively to move the organization forward. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Do I make mistakes? Every day. But do I try to make those situations better and improve from those mistakes? Absolutely. Despite or in spite what people say, what they do, how they talk to me, I treat them with the respect and dignity and pick up the phone and answer emails with the same class and grace that you would want any person in this particular role. So if we're committed to working together, absolutely, we can work together to address those issues. But I will not continue to answer comments and remarks when people put out information that's their interpretation and their ability to share their accounts of what occurred and their opinion. I cannot do that. That is going to be something where I will be going back and forth. But if there's clarity that I can provide, I'm here to provide the clarity to the board, not in a way that's going to create for an issue or an angst between administration and the council. The system works when we all work together collectively. And so I will tell you, I will certainly say that what the individual communicated, there's a lot of other factors associated with it. The lawsuit that Councilperson McCoy brought was a lawsuit that said the city did not provide appropriate notice. We went back, we cured, we provided the notice, and then the rates went forward. When we got to that, before we even got to that point, we said what was done in the past. And so obviously we learned from that mistake and we have moved on. So I do want to provide some clarity with regards to that. But Mr. Chair, I will, it is very uncommon, and I think you would be hard pressed to find any administrator that answers questions during public comments, because the comments are supposed to be directed to the chair and they are the public's opportunity to share their perspective. I actually provide comments and feedbacks. And to those folks that come to the meetings to communicate, some of you in 6 years have never reached out to me. If you would like to have a meaningful, substantive conversation about ways we can move this city forward, I will come to your home to do that, because that has been my principal focus since I've been here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Residents, please. Thank you, Mr. Evans. All right, so, I'm sorry? Who's that, is Mayor? Oh,
Yes.
go ahead, Mayor.
Unfortunately, the system isn't working, Mr. Evans. Who's in charge of UD? Who sits over utility district?
Mr. Chair, in the organizational structure pursuant to the resolution, the utility district director is there, and then I am entitled to the opportunity to supervise the utility district director or my designee.
Let me start off by saying this. Everybody on this dais has some limit of support. Everybody's not going to support me. Everybody's not going to support him. Everybody's not going to support him or her. We all have our different support levels. So you're going to hear some clapping for others that you may not hear for others. Let's deal with that first. Researching, when I called this investigation, I called 2 investigations. One, some people still think is bogus, but you're seeing employees leaving every day. Good employees. The water, I called a water investigation because I didn't trust it. And whoever this, when the guy stood up, said he drank the water, I'm going to tell my residents, I don't drink the water. Because I don't trust my administration. I don't trust all these consultants that's coming in, that I have nobody from the city side that's inside the city that can tell me really what's going on. Consultant for this, consultant for that, consultant for this. They could be doing a good job, but I know people have the opportunity to make money, and they know you really don't have a structure where somebody's overseeing them, they're gonna make that money. I had a chance to go over Ruth Jones' report. See, accountability for a leader is tough. I remember having a meeting with Mr. Evans and department heads. See, it doesn't matter when you run an organization and you put people in place and it doesn't go right, it falls on the leader. Good leaders will stand up and say, it's on me. We'll get it right, but it's on me. It ain't my staff. I get my staff behind the door, but right now it's on me in public. It's good leaders. Stuff do happen. You may not be up on everything. What I understand is I'm the CEO of J Ministries, and I'm hardly never there, but if something happened, it ain't gonna be my staff. It's gonna be that boy Ronnie Felder. He's over J Ministries. And I'm gonna come in and say, you know what? Not that I wasn't there, but it's on me. I take the blame and I fix and get whatever who I have to get with. See, it's not comfortable when we have to make decisions that's best. I remember in 2019, and I'm gonna say this because Ms. Bram called me 2019, 2020. And she said, Mayor, I don't know why the city manager isn't over the UD. That's the toughest department in this city. He should be over as a city manager. Guess what? She's right. You can't have the title, don't operate in it. You can't have the title, don't stuff go wrong, you want to run. And And the fan club has to understand somebody has to be accountable. Those people that left, those people that are resigning, some people are put in positions where they have to resign. Some people can't take it no more. It starts from leadership. I've been saying for a couple of months, let's deal with the elephant in the room. I'm not playing politics with it. I told y'all that. You're going to vote for me if you want me. If you don't, you don't. What's at hand right now is if this city doesn't make decisions best for the city and not worry about everything else, we're going to keep going down this road. Now, I'm going to say something that I don't, and it's not about being popular. Right? It's not about the election. I know some people want to call everything. Why everything got to be about election? Why we just can't deal with what's at hand? Because some of you going to come, ain't never been here. You're running fine. If you have an ambition to run, I encourage you to run. You really don't know what's getting into up here, run. But don't show up when it's time to run. I meant be involved in the city and city stuff and outreach and helping people way before you get up here. That's what I did, at least. I helped people way before I got up here. But what's the elephant in the room? As your mayor, I give recommendations. And my recommendation as your mayor to this board would be to terminate. But I can't make a motion. And I'm not going to play with it. Because we need strong leadership in this city. We have departments that are off the chain. Not just UD. See, people want the truth, people want transparency, but it's hard to give because people worry about what people are going to say. And every department in this city is upside down. Besides the two where you really have some alpha men at. Police, maybe fire. But all these other departments that people are over, man, if only y'all knew. And who does it start with? That man right there. This man came in to operate, to oversee these departments. Like it or not, somebody has to be accountable. And it's fine to blame the people that's not here. It's their fault. It's their fault. No, I'm not thinking. I start at the top. Because at the top of every organization, it works down to the bottom. Yeah, he said, don't drink the water. Don't drink the water, y'all. That's politics stuff. And so I just want to, I just feel like packing my bags down and leave because it's issues that we're going to keep coming here every day playing these games. And council, we can't keep playing games either. Because people voted you in to be leaders also. Just as well as he's a leader, we're leaders. This is what we're expecting him to make a decision. People are expecting you to make a decision. And that's the chain of command. This ain't nothing about, listen, it hurts. We have to make decisions. I had to fire people before. I had to fire family members. It hurts, right? What you do is right for the organization. This is what as these people are leaving, got families. This is what as these people some people got terminated, got families. The butt doesn't stop just because of who you are. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, make the decision. Let's stop playing these games. I gave my recommendation as the mayor. I can't call a motion. And that's to my residents. That's to my voters. Look at me in my face. I recommended that. And I take any consequences that come with it. Because it's the right thing to do for the city and its organization. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. 7B,
Chair,
Board Member Lanier.
thank you. I just want to say that, everybody was getting stuff off their chest. I want to be clear about one thing. The city manager, city administration, department directors, yes, they have to have leadership. But one important thing that they have to have is integrity. They have to have morals. They have to be able to understand that to safeguard the city's coffers, to safeguard the city's reputation, you have to operate with integrity. So when you talk about terminating people and you talk about, things or and don't drink the water. What's that for a mayor to say? The people just said up today that the water was safe to drink. So you don't believe the experts, you don't believe the people who work there. That's another story. But my thing is that when you talk about leadership, you have to talk about integrity and you have to talk about fairness. And when you say that to people, you have to understand that to be in charge of such um, amount of money, and I have said this many times before, the city has got so many projects on the table. We have never ever been in this position to have fire stations being built, police stations, city hall, library. We got bonds for parks and recs. This is the first time a new water plant. This is the first time ever the city has had this much development on the table. Ever. The last project that was built in this city was 10 years prior to us getting here. So you may can say a lot of things about Mr. Evans, and guess what? Nobody is perfect. But moving this city along with the development that we have on the table now is something to be commended. And when you talk about integrity, on Monday night at the CRA meeting, I have been fighting for the marina development to go back out to bid for 5 years. 5 years. The developer submitted fraudulent documents. Mr. Lawson, Mr. McCoy voted to keep them because it has to be at some point, and even not your integrity, the integrity of the city is at stake. So when you talk about these things, you have to understand that, yes, there are a lot of things that need improving. Of course it is. That's what we're here to do. But to attack people and you say, oh, nobody wants to come to the city of Riviera Beach to work. You know why? Because the department directors come to the podium and get decimated because they're trying to do their job. And the interference from the council members, with department directors, with Mr. Evans' office, let them do their job. Your job as a council, our job as a council is legislative. It is not the day-to-day operations of the city. In fact, there's a charter amendment that had to be put in the city's charter to distance the council from the city manager's office because there was interference and there's interference now. So if you want to blame someone, you need to put it where it's supposed to be. And you have to make sure that the people that you're dealing with have some integrity. That is what the city has to show. If you have people who are voting to keep people who are providing fraudulent documents to the city to keep them, then what does that say about the city? So when you have these conversations, then you have to make sure that, and I'm agree with the mayor on this part, come to the meetings, come to the public comments, call your council members, call your city administrators, but don't get up here and attack people and nobody's ever seen you. So what we need to do is to be concerned about this city's reputation and about how we present ourselves as people who have integrity.
Mr. Chair.
One moment, Mr. Evans, and I want to thank everybody for the comments, and I did allow for everybody to get off their chest what they wanted to address. Mayor, thank you for your recommendations. Board Member McCoy, thank you for responding to the public, and Board Member Lanier. We do have the business of the city to get to. If there is a discussion that needs to happen, we have on the agenda statements by the mayor and the board. So if we can get through the business of the city, if the board wanted to address the OIG report, we should have added it to the agenda. My recommendation is we can have a special meeting to discuss it if that's the discussion of the board. But as of right now, we allowed for it because the emotions are very high tonight. And I did not want to limit or try to stop someone from speaking as they've referenced tonight back in January 24th. But just to be clear, if we're going to get through the business of the city residents, we need to all be on the same page. And that starts with this dais. Unfortunately, everyone wanted to go off on a tangent because of the frustration that we have with what's happening from the OIG, what's happening from this community, and what's happening from administration. So I do understand some of the sentiments, Mr. Evans, and I do want us to be able to address them clearly, but we will do them at the proper forum. So now that everyone's gotten off their chest what they wanted to discuss, we can save the additional comments and discussion for the proper position of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Of course, Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Just really briefly, and certainly, I will not go at point and counterpoint with regards to the comments made for the mayor because I respect the position and the office. And so I do want to make a point that our department directors are exceptional individuals, and these tasks and responsibilities they have are very challenging. And they do the best job with the resources they have. And so their departments are not in shambles. In some cases, they're building departments and changing philosophies and breaking systems or creating systems. So I do want to make it clear that I certainly appreciate and value the contribution that everyone that serves in that executive leadership role plays in the agency, and they are definitely trying their best. And I can tell you that our department directors can definitely go somewhere else and work. Other people can't necessarily assume some of their responsibilities because it's not a tough job. It's not an easy job. So I just want to make sure that the record is clear with regards to the exceptional individuals that we have in the department director roles and what they're doing in their respective departments.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And everyone will have comments at the end. So if we can get through the last two items, and then if anyone wants to address any additional concerns before we go into our city council meeting.
Chair, something right quick, I'm sorry. Can I speak right quick?
Actually, let's go ahead and get
Just
to the
one thing.
agenda.
Just one thing.
Board Member Lanier.
I just want to say that the OIG report and the mayor's report need to be aired out publicly, so that we need to have a meeting about that.
Thank you. And
Mr. Chair.
we will have those, of course. Board
I
Member Spears,
know you
go-
want to move forward, but as Councilwoman Lanier just said, or board member, we're in utility district, I'd like to make a motion that we call a special meeting to discuss the OIG report in full length.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Discussion?
Yes,
Board Member McCoy, you're recognized.
yes. I mean, I think it's appropriate for us, before we make the motion, let's try to find the date. I mean, I don't know that anybody would disagree, but I think the date the motion needs to include when we can do this, because we got a holiday next week and I don't know what the members' availability is, so.
Mr. Chair as well.
You're recognized.
Certainly, that's a report that's provided by the Office of the Inspector General, so I would like to confer with them to see of their availability, because they're the ones that conducted the report, and I think it would be appropriate for them to share their comments or remarks if that is something that they are willing to do.
You're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Evans, I'm not quite sure I understand the reason for the OIG to come here and do that. In fact, today is 11/20. January 19th, 2024 is when I first learned of it. This has taken well over 10 months. I mean, what exactly? In fact, the OIG wouldn't come here. They're the Office of the Inspector General. They're not here to be scrutinized. They do their facts and they gather their facts independent of the entire process. The report speaks for itself. And I mean, are we going to sit here and try to ask them questions that's not contained in the, I don't understand. But clearly there is enough here that I believe that we need to at least have a discussion among the board. I'm not interested in going down to the OIG. In fact, I think if someone chooses, they can go down to the OIG, but I don't understand what the purpose is of bringing the OIG here or even inviting them. So if you want to explain something that I'm not familiar with, then I'm open to it. But I was hoping that this is a discussion among the board and having the public, giving them the opportunity to weigh on it.
Mr. Chair.
Right, I'd like to amend my motion to include the date of December 11th, Wednesday, December 11th, for the meeting of the discussion of the OIG.
Mr. Chair,
Amendment was made. Does the second still stand?
Mr. Chair, we already have a
We
meeting
just
or
scheduled a
something
meeting for
scheduled
that.
for that day, right?
Yeah, we just scheduled CRA meeting for that day.
Yeah.
With interviews.
So can we make it the 12th?
Well,
Chair,
You recognize.
instead of us just throwing out things, can we do the special meeting like we normally would do it? Once we find out what everybody's availability is, instead of trying to do it right now on the fly?
So then can we make the motion subject to availability of the board?
Second still stands.
Okay. Additional discussion? So we're going to have a special meeting to discuss the OIG report, and uh, who is going to be the person that references the board? Are we going to ask Mr. Evans to reach out to all the board members to get dates?
Yes.
Thank you. Additional discussion? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lanier? Vice Chair McCoy?
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus?
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. Additional discussion? Thank you. 7B.
Item 7B, resolution number 024-24 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to issue a work order in an amount not to exceed $13,700,000 to the Haskell CDM Smith Joint Venture Company for the GMP2 Groundwater Supply Wells Project, authorizing the city manager to approve change orders up to 5%, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make payments from project number 23039 and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of the cards is closed.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second. Ms. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Assistant City Manager, Ms. Deirdre Jacobs, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Good evening again, Chair Lawson, Mayor Felder, other elected officials in your respective places, City Manager Evans, Mrs. Nguyen, and City Clerk Hall. For the record, again, I'm Deirdre Jacobs, the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. This particular item, 7B, deals with the authorization of a work order for $13.7 million for the construction and installation of 4 production wells. This project is being managed by Haskell CDM Smith in conjunction with our owner's rep, Brownding Caldwell. I did note as a part of their summary presentation, Haskell CDM Smith did apprise the board, at least in a summary fashion, of this particular project. If you guys like to come forward and make additional, share additional information with the board and the public, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Chair, board members, Mayor. We're just going to bring up the previous slides we did, but in your packet is the actual GMP itself. It includes, as was said, 2 superficial aquifer system wells, which will be fully put into service to support the existing water treatment plant once they are complete, and then 2 Floridan aquifer system wells that will be initiated the drilling process to allow us to get that Floridan system started. If you remember, we came with 8 wells and a larger GMP, and due to funding reasons, we were asked to reduce the size of the GMP. So the wells that you see are reflective of that. We are ready to come back as soon as the city is ready with the rate approvals for the remainder of the wells. But this is what you have before you as of right now. We are open to any questions on the items. The bids were advertised. They did include Davis-Bacon and the requirements associated with the SRF and WIFIA that we would be expected. So they are in compliance with that. And as was stated prior to, the bids do include local participation. So I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment cards?
We do not have public comment cards for this
Thank you.
item.
Board Member McCoy, you're recognized.
Thank you. Can you say what SRF is? I know it.
All right, the state revolving fund. So
Okay.
both WIFIA, as was previously discussed, and the state revolving fund require Davis-Bacon, American Iron and Steel, and those have both been incorporated into this project. So they will be compliant.
So did we get American Rescue Act funds for this? That's why Davis-Bacon kicks in?
You currently do not have any funds directly specific to this project, other than the this is currently operating out of your revenue, current existing revenue. However, we have the ability to go back and get funds, so we wanted to make sure that we were compliant in case that we decided in the future to utilize whatever money we do get for this project.
I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me.
Mr. Chair?
One second,
I think I can answer your question. It's reimbursable. So if we spend the money now and we follow the Davis-Bacon Act, if we get the SRF funding approved, which I believe we will, we'll be able to reimburse these funds with the SRF funding.
Yeah,
Recognize.
thank you. So, thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know that. I'm familiar with Davis-Bacon, but if we don't have the funds and we're gonna, I guess, on the front end, pay these folks prevailing wages, is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
And then in the event that we don't receive any federal dollars, because we do got a 5% contingency in here. So what happens?
It's probably a 90% chance or greater that we're going to get the funds. We have met with EPA. It's also reimbursable under the WIFIA program. But we do believe that we're going to get the SRF funding. I mean, we have to take the chance. We've gone this far. We have to take a chance because we don't want to spend the money and not get reimbursed. We spend the money right now and we don't use Davis-Bacon, then that $13 million is gone. We can't. That's out of our regular funding. We have an opportunity to get that money reimbursed at a low interest and possibly, remember, SRF money, just so that you may not understand this,
Sure.
20% of the SRF money is grant money, gets turned into a grant.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know, because I just didn't know how that works on the front end. The other items you spoke of, it was being advertised and bidded. Where and how?
We advertised it through the local advertisement through the Palm Beach Post and the papers, and it also got solicited through our internal bid system where we do send out messages to, I don't know how many contractors we had, but hundreds of contractors. We also did meetings, if you remember, back in March or April of this year, advertising the project prior to going out to bid.
Thank you, Chair.
Sir? Additional comments from?
I'm sorry.
You're
One-
recognized.
One question. So this came up and this is probably a finance question. What does it mean to have change orders up to 5%? And I want to know what that means. So if we got a overall budget with, let's say, 475 line items, is that a 5% limitation off of each line item, or is that comprehensive? Because I've seen this with Fire Station 86, and that's going to be a question for our staff, sir. So I'm not sure how you can answer that, or if you can.
The 5% typically is for the overall project value. So it gives the project manager the ability to approve up to 5% without coming back to talk to you. So 5% of the 13.7 million is all they could approve.
Okay, so
add to the contract without getting a board approval.
So if you had electrical components for these wells included in line item 276 and you're 25% over budget, you're totally within that authority to do that. When you're 25% over that line item budget for electrical components, you're underneath the 5% of the overall, so you're still able to move funds around in the overall budget to be able to cover that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let me just clarify though, for anything that requires the use of contingency, we do have a contingency in there. We do have to state the reason for the use of the contingency.
Okay, and what is that contingency amount? What percentage?
About $500,000 at this time.
Okay, and that's included in the work order?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's for unknowns and variability that might arise during the construction period.
Okay, and that's separate and apart from the change order?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments from the board? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Lanier?
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy?
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus? Chair Lawson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
8A.
Item 8A, resolution number 023-24UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, setting the capital improvement charges, impact fees, authorizing the Utility Special District to update the water system and wastewater system capital impact fees, and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do have one public comment card on this item. The acceptance of the public comment cards is closed.
Ms. Evans? I'm sorry. Motion to adopt? Motion been made and probably seconded. Ms. Evans?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
I can't hear the people that are making the motions and second. I don't know if they're near the microphone, but I can't hear it.
Yeah, the microphones are kind of going in and out, but I'll just make sure that they're audible. Thank you, Ms. Miller Anderson.
Thanks.
Ms. Evans, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, this particular item before you is to contemplate some changes to the impact fee structure. It is not intended to get any official action from the board this evening, more so to get some clarity with regards to the position the board would look to take to this. Our CFO, Mr. Randy Sherman, will provide some additional perspective with regards to this, but this is an item that can bring additional revenue to offset and defray some of the costs that the ratepayers would see associated with the new water treatment plant if we're successful in moving forward with adjusting our impact fees. So I'll have Mr. Sherman go into greater specificity.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Evans. Yeah, back in August of 2023, you authorized a study on the utility district's impact fees. The last time we changed the fees were in 2019. The study has come back, and you see up on the screen, they actually have identified almost $365 million of future projects that could be subject to the impact fees. Our current water rate is $2,110 per ERU, or equivalent of a residential unit. They are proposing $8,222, so over $5,100 increase. And on the water side, wastewater side, our current impact fee is $1,830, and that is only going proposed to go up to $1,904. The reason that we asked to have this on discussions and deliberations is because really looking for some direction on which way the board would like to go. So under the statute that was passed several years ago, you can only increase your impact fees 50%, and you have to phase in that 50%. So what we have up there is really how possibly the increase from 2110 to 8,222 would roll out over the years 2025 through 2029. And then same thing for the wastewater, because it's only a $74 increase, you could actually go right to the top on the wastewater. The statute does provide, though, the ability, if you can justify the need, to go higher than the rollout rates. As part of the study that was attached to the agenda item, the consultant has provided, I'll say, at least the initial discussion points on justifying the need to go straight to the $8,222. The impact fee as part of the $364 million is obviously a good portion of that is the water treatment plant. We are adding capacity to the water treatment plant, and it makes sense for all of the new units that are coming into the city to be assessed an impact fee to provide for that additional capacity of the plant. If the board has the desire to at least explore this, there is a process that we need to go through. We have to hold two publicly announced workshops exclusively to discuss the impact fees and justifying the need to go higher than the rollouts. So again, if you'd like to go that way and give us that direction, we will get those workshops scheduled. So again, we can have that discussion. If it is not the desire of the board to proceed in that manner, we will just bring this item back to adopt the study as presented, and then we would implement it using the rollout rates. Really, again, as the city manager said, this is not really taking an action tonight. We're just looking for direction on whether there's any interest in going above the rollout rates.
Comments from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Recognized.
I'm in favor of the staff holding a workshop to discuss this with the community.
I would agree.
Mr. Chair, if I may, with respect to these, to the workshop, it's more contemplated for future growth. Those individuals that are in existing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sherman, existing structures or condo units or residential structures, they've already paid an impact. This is more with the redevelopment or development of new units that would enter into the system. Correct, Mr. Sherman?
Yes, that's correct. And just to kind of put that a little bit in perspective, for every 100 residential units, that would raise about $500,000. That could either be used for pay-as-you-go capital, reducing our borrowing needs, or under our bond documents, impact fees can be used to pay debt as well. So again, that would then reduce the burden on the current ratepayers.
So, Mr. Chair, the impact would more specifically be to the development community. The residential community, since their facilities are already constructed, they've already paid for those impacts. So if there is a public meeting, that your target audience is most likely the development community.
Mr. Chair?
Recognized.
So, Mr. Sherman, so I thought you were recommending that we have a workshop, but would you prefer that we discuss this at a next utility meeting?
No, by statute, we have to hold at least 2 workshops.
Okay,
So
so
we will schedule workshops.
Okay, so then we'll move forward with the workshops.
Correct. On regularly council meeting nights, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may. But we wanted to communicate to the board that our target audience is going to be, in fact, the development community. Anyone can come, but it's going to be more specific to the development community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Discussion by Executive Director?
I don't have any, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. District Attorney?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Miller Anderson?
None at this time.
Statements from the board, starting with Board Member Lanier.
Yes, I want to say, I've said this twice before. The utility district meetings need to be on a separate day. We have too much going on with our water, with the new water plant, with the building of the wells, that we cannot squeeze it in on the same day as a council meeting. We are going to have these meetings on separate days, because you want to give everyone the opportunity, especially on this dais, and the residents, the opportunity to ask the questions. But to have this jammed into a already city council meeting, it's almost 9 o'clock, and we still have a whole other meeting to go. So I want to recommend to the board that we have a serious discussion and vote on making the utility district meeting on a separate day.
Thank you. Board Member Spiritus?
I would just like to bring to the attention of the board and the community, and I think the board understands this, that because we took extra time to get to the point where we're at today, the cost of the new water plant has probably gone up well over $100 million, maybe even $150 million due to construction costs and inflation. I'm glad to see that now we're moving forward, and I'm looking forward to a new water plant in 2027. Thank you.
Both of our other board members are not on the dais. With no further business, meeting's adjourned. We will start our regular city council meeting in 10 minutes.